Everyone in the capital knew that General Xiao and I were a bitterly mismatched couple. Yet on the day the city fell, he held me tightly in his arms and refused to let go even as countless arrows struck him. With his last breath, he said, "Shen Jiwei, you ruined my entire life. If there is another life, I hope you will let me be with your elder sister." When the northern enemy's cavalry broke through the city gates, I made my final choice and fell with the city. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day the Xiao family came to propose marriage. This time, I would not marry him. When the first arrow struck Xiao Yanzhou, I heard the impact and the crack of bone beneath it. Then came the second and the third. Flames rose beneath the city tower. The hooves of the northern cavalry shattered the green stone paving of the long street, and cries surged into my ears like a tide. Xiao Yanzhou held me beneath him, shielding me with his own body despite his severe injuries. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood, and something warm and sticky clung to my face. It felt like a nightmare from which I would never wake. He clearly hated me. He hated me for stealing the marriage meant for my elder sister Shen Qingyin. He hated me for delaying his life and separating him from the woman he loved. Yet when disaster came, he still covered me with his body and took the rain of arrows meant for me. When he lowered his eyes to look at me, there was none of his usual coldness and no resentment. Only the gray stillness of a life about to go out remained in his gaze. "Shen Jiwei," he said, "you ruined my entire life." My fingers trembled as I tried to press against the wound in his chest, but he caught my hand instead. His grip was so strong that it seemed he wanted to leave the last of his warmth with me. "If there is another life, I hope you will let me be with your elder sister." Those words hurt more than the arrows that had struck him. When the enemy soldiers closed in, I rose from his arms. Knowing I would not escape, I made my final choice. I thought that if there truly was another life, I would not marry him again. I would not fight, explain, or ruin anyone else's happiness. As my consciousness faded, the last thing I saw was Xiao Yanzhou's hand, still holding mine. When I opened my eyes again, there were no thundering hooves, no flames, and no heart-rending cries from a fallen city. There was only a soft, almost cloying voice beside me. "Little sister, if you truly love young General Xiao, I am willing to step aside for you." I jerked my head up. The hall was filled with red candles, embroidered screens, and curling incense smoke. The main hall of the Marquis of Jinnan's manor was crowded with people. My father, Shen Huai, sat upright in the principal seat with a faint frown. My stepmother, Madame Pei, sat beside him with exactly the right amount of concern in her eyes. My elder sister, Shen Qingyin, wore a pale moon-white dress. Her eyes were red, and she twisted a handkerchief between her fingers as though she had suffered an unbearable grievance. On the other side of the hall stood the people from the northern garrison general's manor. They had just delivered the betrothal gifts. At their head was a young general in a dark embroidered robe, a sword at his waist, and a cold, sharp expression on his face. It was Xiao Yanzhou. Not the gravely wounded man who had died in my arms, but 19-year-old Xiao Yanzhou, alive, distant, and full of youthful edge. I stared at him. My throat tightened with the memory of my previous death, and I could not speak. He looked back at me with a cool, appraising gaze. At that point, he still believed that Shen Qingyin had saved his life when they were young. He also believed that the Xiao family's proposal was meant for her. In my previous life, this was the day Shen Qingyin had announced before everyone that she was willing to give him up to me. With a single sentence, she had removed herself from blame and branded me as the shameless younger sister who had stolen her marriage. I had been young and proud then. Her performance had made me tremble with anger. I insisted that I had stolen nothing, but no one believed me. My father called me unreasonable. Madame Pei wept and accused me of destroying the bond between sisters. Shen Qingyin retreated to the side in tears, while Xiao Yanzhou looked at me with a gaze as cold as frost. In the end, my name was written into the marriage contract. I became the notorious wicked daughter of the capital, and the wife whom General Xiao later accused of ruining his life. A sharp pain came from my palm. I looked down and saw that my fingernails had dug deep crescents into my skin. I had truly returned. I had returned to the day the general's manor came to propose marriage, before any of the tragedies had been written. Madame Pei sighed gently. Her voice was as soft as spring water. "Jiwei, your elder sister has always loved you. But marriage is not a game. If you had feelings for the young general, you should have told the family sooner. Why create such a scene today?" The words were painfully familiar. In my previous life, she had placed the accusation of stealing the marriage on my shoulders just as lightly. I looked at her. She was impeccably groomed, with a red gold pearl ornament at her temple, and a gentle expression that made her seem every bit the virtuous stepmother praised throughout the capital. But I knew what those soft hands would do. They would forge my late mother's seal, sell my maid Ali, and shift the old military grain account onto my dead mother. My gaze moved slowly across everyone in the hall. My father frowned as if ashamed of me. Shen Qingyan watched me through tears, waiting for me to lose control as I had before. Xiao Yanzhou held the hilt of his sword, his expression dark and unreadable. I did not know whether he was waiting for my explanation, or waiting for me to admit to the absurd accusation. Then I suddenly smiled. It was only a faint smile, yet the entire hall went still. Elder sister says she is willing to step aside for me? Shen Qingyan's eyes trembled. Little sister, I know you have always been strong-willed. If you truly love young General Xiao, I do not wish to fight you for him. What beautiful words. By retreating one step, she claimed all the affection and generosity for herself. I rose slowly and straightened my sleeve. You misunderstand, elder sister. Shen Qingyan froze and Madame Pei turned toward me. I walked to the center of the hall and gave a proper bow to my father and the Xiao family's matchmaker. Father, Madame Pei, General Xiao, since the elders of both families are present today, certain matters should be made clear before everyone. My father's brows sank. Jiwei, what trouble are you trying to cause now? I did not look at him. I looked only at Xiao Yanzhou. It felt as though the warmth of his final moments still clung to my fingers, but I forced all that pain down. Everyone in the capital knows that General Xiao and my elder sister share an old debt of gratitude and an unusual bond. Today the Xiao family has come to propose marriage, and everyone in this household assumed the bride would be my elder sister. Xiao Yanzhou's eyes shifted slightly. Shen Qingyan tightened her grip on her handkerchief. I continued, if this marriage falls to me, people will only say that I stole my elder sister's match, that the daughters of the Marquis of Jinan fought over the same man, and that the Xiao family delivered its betrothal gifts without making its intentions clear. Madame Pei's expression changed. Jue, those words are too serious. Your sister spoke only because she cares for you. I know she cares for me. I turned to Shen Qingyan and smiled. That is why I care for her as well. Since elder sister and General Xiao are in love, please have father write her name on the marriage contract. The entire hall fell silent. Incense smoke drifted slowly through the air. The tears on Shen Qingyan's face seemed to freeze. Madame Pei sat up straight at once. I stood quietly, pretending not to understand the warning in her gaze. Madame Pei just said that marriage is not a game. Since it is not a game, everything should be clear. Elder sister is willing to step aside for me, and I am naturally willing to step aside for her. I looked at my father. Isn't that right, father? His expression darkened. In my previous life, he had been able to push the marriage onto me because I had lost my temper and left myself unable to defend my name. But this time I did not cry, argue, or fight. I simply returned the choice to them exactly as they had presented it. Shen Qingyan finally spoke. Little sister, how can you say that? I never meant. Never meant what? I asked softly. That you do not care for the young general, or that you do not wish to marry him. Her face slowly turned pale. Xiao Yanzhou's gaze finally left me and settled on Shen Qingyan. His voice was quiet, but every person in the hall heard it. Eldest Miss Shen, are you unwilling to marry me? Shen Qingyan flinched as though pricked by a needle. She hurriedly raised her head. General Xiao, you misunderstand. I only fear that my health is too weak for me to bear the responsibilities of the mistress of a general's household. I nearly laughed. How had I failed to understand those words in my previous life? She did not dislike Xiao Yanzhou. She simply did not wish to marry into a military family, live in constant fear, or become a general's widow at any moment. Yet she could not bear to give up the reputation of being the cherished woman in Xiao Yanzhou's heart. She wanted to remain the pure white moonlight in Xiao Yanzhou's heart without ever signing the marriage contract. Xiao Yanzhou's brows drew together. He looked at Shen Qingyan as though he were hearing the true meaning beneath her words, for the first time. Madame Pei reacted quickly and tried to smooth things over. Young General, do not blame Qingyan. She has been frail since childhood and always thinks of others before herself. It is not that she is unwilling. She only fears becoming a burden to you. I lowered my eyes. Elder sister's concern for the young general is truly moving. Shen Qingyan looked at me, and a flash of panic crossed her eyes. I raised my head and added, then this is even better. The general's manner has served the country loyally for generations and values gratitude above all. Elder sister saved the young general's life and is so considerate of him. This marriage is surely made in heaven. I turned to the Xiao family's matchmaker. Please bring out a new marriage contract and write my elder sister Shen Qingyan's name. The matchmaker looked from me to Xiao Yanzhou and did not dare answer. Xiao Yanzhou remained silent. His face was tense and his lips were pressed into a thin line. In my previous life, whenever he wore that expression, I had felt wronged and assumed he hated me. Now I felt only relief. I was no longer fighting for him. It was their turn to suffer. My father finally slammed his hand on the table. Enough! A marriage is not something for you to direct in the middle of the hall. I turned toward him. You are right, father. Marriage should be decided by the elders. I only fear that the Marcus household will be accused of stealing a match, that my sister will be wronged, and that the Xiao family will misunderstand. I paused. Or did father intend from the beginning to make me marry an elder sister's place? His face flushed dark red. You, Madame Pei, immediately began to cry. Jiwei, how can you think that way? Your father and I are doing this for both of you. For my good? I repeated softly, without emotion. In my previous life, I had believed those words too many times. Every time I believed them, I received another wound in return. If this is for my good, then please tell the Xiao family clearly, before everyone here, which daughter of the Shen family they intend to marry. Even the Xiao household steward held his breath. Xiao, Yanzhou suddenly spoke. Second Miss Shen, I looked at him. There was doubt and scrutiny in his eyes, along with something more complicated that I could not read. Are you truly unwilling to marry me? Every gaze in the hall fell upon me. In my previous life, I had wanted to marry him desperately. Even knowing that he loved my elder sister, I had clung to the foolish hope that time would reveal my sincerity. Later, I learned that a heart separated by misunderstandings, lies, and one death after another might never see the truth, no matter how much time passed. I met his gaze calmly. Young general, your heart already belongs to someone else. Why should I marry you? His expression changed. I bowed to him. Whether it is an old debt of gratitude or a marriage agreement between our families, it should belong to the person for whom it was intended. Today, I, Shen Jiwei, am willing to step aside. I am not acting out of anger, nor am I retreating in order to advance. I spoke each word clearly. I sincerely wish to bring the two of you together. Shen Qingyin's face went completely white. Xiao Yanzhou watched me for a long time without speaking. Then he drew something from his sleeve. It was one half of a Langya jade pendant, pale and clear, with a fine crack along its edge. My hidden hand trembled violently. In my previous life, I had not learned until the 3rd year of our marriage that he had always treasured that half pendant. Only then did I discover that the person who saved him on Mount Luoxia when they were young had never been Shen Qingyin. It had been me. My wrist had been scraped by a sharp rock, leaving a faint stain on the jade. Afraid that he would lose consciousness and die, I had pressed my half of the pendant into his palm and told him to survive, because people in the capital were waiting for him. Later, Shen Qingyin found the handkerchief I had dropped and claimed the deed as her own. Looking at the jade now, I felt the pain of my previous life seep back through my bones. Xiao Yanzhou opened his palm and looked at Shen Qingyin. Since we are speaking openly today, eldest Miss Shen, do you remember where I was wounded when you saved me? All the color drained from Shen Qingyin's face. Inside my sleeve, the other half of the Langya pendant lay against my palm, cold as a blade. The hall was so quiet that the faint crackle of the lamp wick could be heard. Shen Qingyin stared at the half pendant in Xiao Yanzhou's hand, her lashes trembling violently. She had always been skilled at crying. In my previous life, whenever her eyes reddened, everyone supplied the rest of the story for her. She did not need to say she had been wronged. Others accused me of forcing her. She did not need to say she had yielded. Others praised her generosity. But this time, Xiao Yanzhou had asked for a specific detail from the past. She could not evade it with a simple claim that she remembered. Madame Pei reacted quickly. Pressing a handkerchief to the corner of her eye, she said gently, Young General, Qingyin was very young when she saved you, and she was badly frightened. So many years have passed. How could she remember every detail? You are making things difficult for her. In my previous life, I would have argued at once. Now I merely lowered my eyes to the patterned carpet. Madame Pei's words seemed to rescue Shen Qingyin, but they also reminded Xiao Yanzhou that forgetting details from childhood could be natural. Yet she had forgotten that he came from a military family. Soldiers remembered the location of a wound and the path of escape. Even after 10 years, such things should not become completely vague. Xiao Yanzhou did not look at Madame Pei. His gaze remained on Shen Qingyin. Shen Qingyin bit her lip. Her voice was so faint that it seemed ready to scatter in the air. You were hurt so badly that day. I was terrified and only wanted to save you. How could I have dared to look closely? Tears rolled down her cheeks. If you do not believe me, General Xiao, then I have nothing more to say. What a perfect answer. She used grievance to stop all further questioning. Several Shen clan relatives in the hall already looked sympathetic. My father frowned as well. Yanzhou, the matter happened long ago. Why question her today? Qingyin is frail and cannot endure such distress. Xiao Yanzhou's fingers tightened around the pendant until his knuckles paled, but he said nothing. At that moment, Shen Qingyin suddenly turned to me. "Little sister, why must you force me like this today?" she cried. "I already said that if you love General Xiao, I am willing to withdraw. Why must you still push me forward and humiliate me before everyone?" There it was, the same performance as in my previous life. I had merely returned the choice to her, yet she accused me of forcing her. I raised my head and looked at her calmly. "Elder sister, I am only following your words," she choked. I walked closer, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You said you were willing to step aside for me, so I said I was willing to step aside for you. Why are you crying as though I had threatened you?" Her face stiffened. Madame Pei immediately said, "Jiwei, why be so exacting between sisters? Your elder sister is soft-hearted and does not wish to hurt you." "Since she is soft-hearted," I replied with a faint smile, "then she should make her meaning even clearer. If the marriage contract bears my name, the capital will say I stole her marriage. If it bears her name, she says I forced her. Madame Pei, whose name should be written on it?" Madame Pei's expression finally changed. She had probably never imagined that the Shen Jiwei, who once did nothing but argue with red eyes, would one day return every one of her words to her. My father snapped. "Enough," I bowed, "I agree. A marriage should not become a spectacle in which two sisters push the same man back and forth. Since the Xiao family brought betrothal gifts today, General Xiao should state his choice himself." I turned toward Xiao Yanzhou. "General Xiao, do you wish to marry Shen Qingyin or Shen Jiwei?" Shen Qingyin raised her eyes sharply. Xiao Yanzhou looked at me. The moment our gazes met, I remembered our wedding night in my previous life. He had looked at me in the same way, except that there had been no doubt in his eyes, then only coldness. "Shen Jiwei," he had said, "you got what you wanted. You married into my family." I had trembled with anger and asked why he was so certain I had stolen the marriage. He never answered. The red candles burned until dawn while I sat alone through the night. Now at last, I returned the question to him. Xiao Yanzhou was silent for a moment before saying, "The Xiao family came with betrothal gifts to repay a debt of life. We intended to marry the person who saved me that year." Shen Qing's face paled again. I laughed coldly in my heart. The true key had never been the bride's name. It was the identity of his savior. In my previous life, Shen Qingyin had taken that debt of gratitude, and with it the softest place in Xiao Yanzhou's heart. But in this life, I would not rush to reclaim the truth. That would be far too easy for Shen Qingyin. I wanted her to hold the stolen credit in her arms and fall because of it, one step at a time. My father said impatiently, "Since that is the case, Qingyin will—" "Father," I interrupted. His face turned livid. "What else do you have to say?" I smiled. "I only wish to remind you that General Xiao said he came for the person who saved him. If my sister truly was that person, everyone will be pleased. But if there is some misunderstanding and the marriage contract is signed now, both families will be humiliated later." Madame Pei's voice cooled. "Jiwei, are you questioning your sister? I would not dare." "That is precisely why she should explain it herself." Shen Qingyin bit her lip hard. After a long pause, she said, "Of course I remember. It was just that General Xiao was badly wounded and had lost so much blood. I was young then, so some details are naturally unclear." Xiao Yanzhou asked, "Where did it happen?" She hesitated. "Mount Luoxia, on the southern slope." My fingers curled inside my sleeve. Wrong. It had happened on the northern slope. The southern slope had an official road, while only the northern slope had an abandoned hunting hut. A subtle change came over Xiao Yanzhou's eyes. If I had not been his wife for years in my previous life, I might not have noticed it. "The southern slope?" he repeated. Shen Qingyin's lashes trembled. "I believe so. The rain was so heavy that day and I was terrified. Many things have become vague." She began to cry again. Madame Pei immediately drew her close. "That is enough. Do not question her anymore. Qingyin is already in poor health. What if she falls ill from being pressed like this?" Then Madame Pei looked at me with open reproach. "Jiwei, are you satisfied now? In my previous life, those words would have driven me into a frenzy of hurt. Now I simply looked at Shen Qingyin's pale face. "Why are you crying, elder sister? General Xiao is only asking about how you saved his life. He is not accusing you of a crime." Shen Qingyin stiffened. Xiao Yanzhou glanced at me, but I did not meet his gaze again. This was enough for today. If I pressed too hard, Shen Qingyin would hide behind Madame Pei and everyone would think me cruel. A blow had to land on the most vulnerable point, but not kill the lie at once. I needed her to remain alive and continue lying. The more she said, the more mistakes she would make. After the hall remained deadlocked for some time, the Xiao family's elderly steward stepped forward to ease the tension. He suggested postponing the marriage contract for a few days until both families had reconsidered the matter. My father readily accepted the escape. Madame Pei relaxed, and Shen Qingyin's fingers were still trembling when she returned to her seat. Watching her, I suddenly found my former self laughable. I had spent an entire lifetime entangled with someone like her. When the Xiao family left, Xiao Yanzhou stopped beside me. I stood with my hands lowered and did not look at him. The faint scent of cold pine drew closer. "Shen Jiwei," he asked quietly, "were your words today truly not spoken in anger?" I raised my eyes. At 19, he was sharper than the man in my memories, his face not yet weathered by years of war. Looking at him, my heart suddenly ached, not for the young man before me, but for the man who had died in my arms. I forced that grief down. "General Xiao is overthinking it. I am not so idle that I would gamble my whole life merely to make a point." He watched me for a long time. "You have changed." "People change," I said with a faint smile. "Especially those who have died once." He seemed about to ask what I meant, but I stepped back and gave him a proper bow. "Take care on your way, General Xiao." This time, I did not give him a chance to continue. The moment the Xiao family passed through the manor gates, my father's anger descended. "Kneel." I looked at him. I had heard that command too many times in my previous life. When they forced me into marriage, he ordered me to kneel. Before I married, when I wished to visit my maternal family and say farewell, he said an unmarried woman should not wander about and ordered me to kneel again. Later, when the general's manor was impeached and I returned to beg him for help, he refused to see me. He merely sent word that since I had married into the Xiao family, I was a Xiao wife and should not drag my maiden family into trouble. Hearing the command again, I felt no ripple in my heart. I knelt slowly, not because I admitted fault, but because it was not yet time to tear away every pretense. Madame Pei helped Shen Qingyin sit at the side and spoke with a wounded expression. "Jiwei, you have disappointed us greatly today. Your sister has yielded to you in everything, yet you humiliated her before everyone. What will people say if this spreads? They will say that the second daughter of the Marquis of Jin'an understands the greater good and willingly brought her sister and the young general together." Madame Pei choked on her next words. My father shouted, "You still dare answer back? I am only telling the truth. If I had cried and fought to marry him today, that would truly have disgraced this household." His face turned blue with anger. Shen Qingyin sobbed softly. "Father, mother, this is all my fault. If I were not so weak, and if there were no debt of gratitude between General Xiao and me, my sister would not be so troubled." "You are mistaken, elder sister." She looked pitifully at me, tears hanging on her lashes. "Little sister, I do not blame you. I am not troubled," I said softly. "If you like General Xiao, marry him. If you do not refuse him, do not push me out as your shield." Her tears paused. Madame Pei snapped, "What kind of accusation is that? Who has used you as a shield?" I turned to her. "Why are you so anxious, Madame Pei?" I said it casually. The gentleness on her face almost broke. "My father could endure no more. Someone take the second young lady back to Qingwu courtyard. Without my permission, she is not to leave." He intended to confine me. The same thing had happened in my previous life. After the proposal, I was locked away for 7 full days. During those 7 days, Shen Qingyin's tears spread throughout the capital, as did my disgrace. By the time my name was placed on the marriage contract, I had no chance left to defend myself. But 7 days was too long. In 3 days, Madame Pei would invent an offense and sell Ali. In 5 days, a senior maid from Shen Qingyin's courtyard would search the chest my mother had left behind. In 7 days, at the capital's flower banquet, Shen Qingyin would use the rumors to trample me down again. I could not remain confined, but neither could I force my way out now. I bowed. "I accept the punishment." My father gave a cold snort. Satisfaction flickered in Madame Pei's eyes, while Shen Qingyin looked relieved. I did not turn back as I left the main hall. Spring wind met me beneath the covered corridor. The sky was bright and the wind chimes under the eaves rang gently. In my previous life, all of this had burned to ashes when the city fell. Now, there was still time. Ali waited at the courtyard gate. The moment she saw me, her eyes reddened with worry. "Miss, did they make things difficult for you?" I heard the Marquise was furious. Seeing her alive before me, I stopped in my tracks. On the day Ali was sold in my previous life, she had clung to the hem of my skirt and cried, "Miss, I am not afraid of hardship. I am only afraid that no one will be left to protect you." The next time I saw her was at a burial ground before the city fell. She had become painfully thin, yet still clutched the small silver bell I once gave her. My eyes burned. I reached out and took her hand. Ali stared at me in surprise. "Miss?" I tightened my grip. "Ali, from today onward, no matter who calls you out or what reason they give, do not leave Qingwu courtyard without my permission." My serious tone frightened her, and she nodded quickly. Yes, I will remember. I entered the courtyard, then turned to look at the closed gate. My father thought confinement would make me bow my head. Madame Pei thought she could shut me away and continue controlling the rumors. Shen Qingyin thought that once she survived today, she could remain the spotless white moonlight in everyone's eyes. They had all forgotten that Qingwu Courtyard had belonged to my mother when she was alive. It held something the entire Shen family feared would be found. After night fell, I had Ali extinguish the outer lamps, leaving only a small candle in the inner room. I went to the bookcase and pressed the old Buddhist scripture at the far right of the third shelf. A mechanism clicked. A hidden compartment opened slowly in the wall. Inside rested a sandalwood chest, covered in dust but preserved in excellent condition. My fingertips brushed its carved pattern, and my chest tightened. This was the old chest my mother had left me. In my previous life, I had not thought to open it until after marrying into the general's manor. By then, the most important account book inside had disappeared. This time, I had reached it before anyone else. I opened the chest. A yellowed letter lay on top. Beneath, it was a blue-covered account book. On the first page was written, Great Sheng, Yuanhe, Year 16. A shipment of 3,000 she of winter grain for the northern frontier was released from the western suburban granary of the Marquis of Jinnan's household. Transport seal, Madam Qin. I stared at the final 2 characters and slowly tightened my fingers. Madam Qin was my mother, but she had died of illness in the 15th year of Yuanhe. How could a dead woman have authorized a grain shipment in the 16th year? Ali whispered beside me. Miss, is something wrong with the account? The candle flickered. I looked at the familiar yet impossible seal, and a chill spread down my back. In my previous life, before the disastrous defeat at the northern frontier, reports of moldy military grain had already spread through the army. The grain, that later caused the deaths of countless soldiers, had passed through a warehouse registered to the Shen family years earlier. And the name authorizing it belonged to my dead mother. At that moment, faint footsteps sounded outside the courtyard. Ali turned sharply. I closed the account book and blew out the candle. A furtive silhouette stopped outside the paper window. Then came a lowered voice. Madam ordered us to find the old chest in the second young lady's room tonight. The person outside seemed to hold their breath. If I had not died once, and if the nightmares of a fallen city did not wake me at the smallest sound, I might not have heard it. Ali's face went white. She was about to speak when I covered her mouth. She immediately froze. A second voice whispered, but the second young lady was only confined today. Everyone in the courtyard will still be awake. The first woman answered impatiently. What are you afraid of? No one has cared about Qingwu Courtyard for years. The second young lady only has Ali beside her. Madam said the old chest must be hidden in the inner room. Find the account book, and the eldest young lady will reward us generously. Ali's eyes widened. I released her and made a silent gesture. She nodded, anger rising in her face. I returned the account book to the sandalwood chest. Then I took an ordinary old box from beneath the curtain, filled it with unimportant poetry collections and Buddhist scriptures copied by my mother, and pushed the true sandalwood chest back into the hidden compartment. The mechanism closed, leaving the wall as it had been. Only then did I relight the candle. The people outside clearly had not expected the room to brighten. Their footsteps stumbled. I sat beside the couch and lifted a teacup. Who is outside? Silence. Ali understood at once. She rushed over and pulled the door open. 2 older maidservants were bent beneath the window, and nearly fell when the door swung wide. I recognized one of them as Nanny Zhou from Madame Pei's courtyard. In my previous life, she had led the servants who dragged Ali away, claiming that Ali had stolen Shen Qingyin's jade hairpin. They meant to sell her to an outlying estate. Locked inside my courtyard, I could only beat on the gate and scream for them to stop. No one listened, and Ali never returned. Now Nanny Zhou stood before me alive, the black mole at the corner of her mouth unchanged. I smiled at her. The smile unsettled her, but she still forced herself to say, "Second young lady, Madam feared you had been wronged today and sent me to check on you." I set down my teacup. By checking beneath my window? Her face stiffened. The other servant hurried to explain. We saw that the lamp was out and feared you had gone to sleep, so we did not dare disturb you. Ali flushed with anger. You did not dare disturb her, yet you pressed yourselves against her window? You clearly came to steal something. Nanny Zhou glared at her. You wretched little maid, who gave you permission to interrupt when your betters are speaking? Ali flinched. I raised my eyes. She is my maid, and she is under my protection. Nanny Zhou paused. My voice remained quiet. Insult her one more time and see what happens. The room went still. She had not expected me to defend a maidservant and humiliate her openly. Her mouth moved, but she did not dare repeat the insult. She was only a servant beside Madame Pei. No matter how unloved I was, I remained a legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household. They had bullied me only because I once cared too much about my father's and Madame Pei's approval. I kept telling myself that if I endured a little more, the household might remain peaceful. I no longer wished to endure. I pointed to their shadows on the floor. Tell me, what did Madame Pei order you to find? Second young lady, you misunderstand. Ali, call the gate steward. Ali straightened. Yes. Nanny Zhou's expression changed. Second young lady, what are you doing? I am asking the gate steward to take you before father. Although I am confined, I have never heard of a household rule that allows the stepmother's servants to crouch beneath a legitimate young lady's window in the middle of the night. She began to sweat. We truly came on Madame's orders to see whether you were well. Excellent. Father can hear how Madame Pei visits me at midnight. They had come because they were certain I would not dare cause trouble. In the past, I feared my father's anger, feared being called unfilial, and feared being accused of disrespecting my stepmother. Now I feared none of it. The greater the disturbance, the harder it would be for Madame Pei to explain. Nanny Zhou dropped to her knees. Second young lady, forgive us. We were only passing by. We would never dare disturb you. I looked down at her, but before my eyes appeared the scene of Ali being dragged away. Ali had cried my name, and Nanny Zhou had struck her across the face while cursing her as a lowly maid. I had remembered that blow for years. I stepped before Nanny Zhou, passing by, then I raised my hand and slapped her. The crack rang through the room. She turned with the force of it and remained stunned. Ali stared as well. My palms stung, but some of the anger that had weighed on me for 2 lifetimes finally loosened. That is to teach you that Qingwu Courtyard is not a place you may casually pass through. Nanny Zhou covered her cheek, shock and hatred in her eyes. I bent slightly and lowered my voice. Return and tell Madame Pei that if she wishes to find something, she may come and ask me in daylight. If anyone touches my window again at night, I will have that person dealt with as a thief, and no mercy will be shown. Her body trembled. I straightened. Get out! The 2 servants fled in disorder. Ali stood by the door, her eyes shining. Miss, you were incredible just now. Her admiration made me want both to laugh and cry. If I had been stronger sooner in my previous life, perhaps she would not have died. She sensed the change in my mood. Miss, what is wrong? Nothing. I closed the door and placed the old box of poems in an obvious location. Madame Pei would come again tomorrow. Ali asked nervously, is the true chest hidden safely? I went to the hidden compartment and brushed my fingers over the wall. Hiding it is not a lasting solution. Since Madame Pei is already searching, she knows there is something wrong in my mother's old accounts. I must contact the Qin family quickly. My mother came from the Qin family of Jiangnan, which had operated grain routes for generations. In my previous life, the rules of filial obedience and reputation trapped me in the Shen household, and I never asked my maternal family for help. Later, the Qin family was implicated in the military grain case. Its property was confiscated, and my maternal grandmother died during the journey into exile. Only then did I learn that there had always been people in this world who truly wanted to protect me. This time, I could not let the Qin family be dragged into danger without warning. I wrote a short message containing only 8 Chinese characters, my late mother's old account. Northern Frontier Winter Grain. I sealed it with wax and handed it to Ali. Tomorrow morning, find a way to deliver this to Tongfeng Grain Shop in the Eastern City. Give it to shopkeeper Qin personally. No one else. Ali nodded solemnly. I will remember. She hid the letter against her body, then asked, and what will you do, miss? I looked out at the heavy darkness. I will wait for Madame Pei. She did not keep me waiting long. The next morning, soon after breakfast, Madame Pei arrived at Qingwu Courtyard with several servants. Shen Qingyin came as well. She wore a pale pink dress, her face still somewhat white and faint shadows beneath her eyes, as though she had spent the night crying. Had I not heard Nanny Zhou mention the eldest young lady's promised reward, I might truly have believed that I had broken her heart. The moment Madame Pei entered, her gaze swept through the room. I had deliberately left the ordinary old box in sight. Her eyes rested on it for a moment before moving away. Nanny Zhou failed to observe proper conduct last night and disturbed you, she said. I have already punished her. I held my tea. Madame Pei certainly runs a strict household. She heard the mockery, and her smile stiffened. Shen Qingyin asked gently, Little sister, are you still angry? Mother was only worried about you last night. Worried about what? I looked at her. That I would not sleep well, or that my room contained something I should not keep. Her lashes trembled. Madame Pei sighed. Jiwei, your misunderstanding of me is too deep. Your mother died early. I dare not claim that I treated you exactly as my own child, but I have never deprived you of food or clothing. Yet because of one marriage, you humiliated your elder sister in public and accused me of sending people to steal from you. How can I not feel hurt? By the end her eyes were red, mother and daughter each with tears ready, truly a perfect pair. I put down my cup. Since Madame Pei is hurt, perhaps we should examine the household accounts and see whether Qingwu Courtyard's allowance has ever truly been reduced over the years. Her expression changed. Shen Qingyan hurriedly said, Mother came here out of kindness. Why do you immediately ask to inspect the accounts? Are you afraid of the accounts, elder sister? That is not what I meant. Good, I smiled. I said it casually. You need not be so anxious. She could barely maintain her smile. Madame Pei drew a breath and finally stopped circling the subject. Some of the things your mother left behind belong to the Marquis's household. You are young and do not understand the importance of account books. Keeping them carelessly may bring trouble. Bring them out and I will sort them for you. I laughed coldly inside. So she had come for exactly that. I ordered Ali to bring out the ordinary old box. Madame Pei's eyes brightened, though she maintained the dignity of an elder. It is good that you have thought it through. I opened the box. Inside were only Buddhist scriptures and poetry collections. The smile faded from her face. Shen Qingyan could not stop herself from looking closer. I showed them each book. Are these what Madame Pei meant? Your mother's belongings cannot consist only of these. Then tell me what else there should be. The room fell silent. She could hardly admit that she sought an account book connected to an old military grain case. Shen Qingyan said softly, Mother only fears that you will damage something precious in anger. I'm not angry. I closed the box. But when someone searches my late mother's belongings in the middle of the night, that does grieve me. Madame Pei's expression darkened completely. Jiwei, your tongue has become increasingly sharp. I lowered my head over the box lid. When a person is forced too often, she eventually grows thorns. Shen Qingyan's eyes reddened. Do you blame me, little sister? I looked at her. Do you wish me to blame you? Yesterday you said you would step aside for me. Today you say I wounded you. I truly cannot understand you. Her tears gathered again, but I gave her no chance to release them. If you sincerely love General Xiao, then when the Xiao family returns to discuss the marriage, I will tell father that I will not compete with you. If you do not love him, say so clearly. General Xiao has searched for the owner of half a jade pendant for so many years. He should not be kept waiting forever. Her fingers clenched hard around her handkerchief. Madame Pei stood. Remain confined and reflect on your behavior. I did not rise to see them out. At the door she turned back. Jiwei, it is not a blessing for a woman to be too strong. I met her gaze. Nor is it a blessing for a woman to be too skilled at pretending. Her face paled, and she swept out. Shen Qingyan followed, but after several steps, she stopped and looked back. Tears still shone in her eyes, yet beneath the weakness I finally saw resentment she could no longer conceal. Little sister, do you truly intend to make matters this absolute? I looked at her and found the version of myself she had once manipulated almost unfamiliar. You misunderstand, elder sister, I said quietly. This is only the beginning. Her expression changed. After they left, Ali emerged from behind the screen. Miss, they will certainly try to harm you again. They will. That is why we must move faster. That afternoon, Ali left Qingwu Courtyard under the excuse of buying embroidery thread. She took a rear path, bribed the servant guarding the side gate with broken silver, and escaped unnoticed. While waiting for her, I removed the other half of the Langya pendant from the hidden compartment. It lay quietly in my palm. I had worn it when I went to Mount Luoxia to offer incense at 13. A sudden mountain storm had trapped me there. In an abandoned hunting hut on the northern slope, I found an injured boy. He had 3 wounds, a cut on his left shoulder, an arrow wound at his side, and a bloody mark on his leg from an animal trap. I did not know him, but even unconscious he clutched a military tally and repeatedly muttered that the capital was waiting for a report from the northern frontier. Afraid he would die, I tore part of my skirt to stop the bleeding. When pursuers approached, I hid him in the cellar beneath the hunting hut and lured them away myself. While fleeing, I scraped my wrist on a rock and left a faint trail along the path. Before leaving him, I pressed half of my Langya pendant into his hand and told him to survive because the capital was waiting for him. Afterward, I suffered a high fever for 3 days. When I woke, Shen Qingyan was beside my bed. She asked where I had gone, why my skirt was torn, and how I had injured my wrist. I still trusted her then and told her everything in my feverish confusion. Later, Xiao Yanzhou became convinced that Shen Qingyan had saved him. Some disasters had been planted when I was only 13. I tightened my grip on the pendant, and the old scar on my wrist seemed to ache. At dusk, Ali finally returned, breathless and covered in sweat. After closing the door, she drew a letter from her clothes. Miss, shopkeeper Chin's face changed when he read your message. He said he would find a way to reply within 3 days. He also said that if the matter truly concerns the Northern Frontier winter grain, you must protect the account book. The Chin family will send someone to the capital immediately. My maternal family was still there. The knowledge eased something in my chest. Before I could answer, a young maid called from outside. Second young lady, someone from General Xiao's residence has brought you a gift. I froze. The visitor was Zhou Heng, Xiao Yanzhou's personal guard. In my previous life, he had never liked me. He always looked at me as though I were the calamity that had ruined his general's life. Now he stood at the gate of Qingwu courtyard with an unreadable expression, holding a brocade box. Second Miss Shen, my young general ordered me to deliver this. What is it? Zhou Heng opened the box. Inside lay a bottle of excellent wound medicine and a plain white wrist ribbon. My heart tightened at the sight of the ribbon. The young general noticed an old scar on your wrist yesterday. This medicine reduces pain and scarring. If you can use it, please keep it. I instinctively pulled down my sleeve. He had seen it. Zhou Heng looked at me strangely, then took a small note from his sleeve. The young general also said that the Grand Princess will hold a flower banquet in 3 days. Eldest Miss Shen will attend. If you wish to go, he can speak to the Marquise on your behalf. I accepted the note. Only one line was written in Xiao Yanzhou's sharp hand. Rumors that begin in public should also be ended in public. I stared at it for a long time. In my previous life, it was at that flower banquet that Shen Qingyin made everyone believe I had only pretended to retreat so I could steal her marriage. Xiao Yanzhou had not attended. I had stood alone amid the crowd while the noblewomen laughed at my schemes. In this life, he had taken the initiative to warn me. Ali whispered, "Mrs. General Xiao helping you?" I tightened my grip on the note. The wind moved through the Chinese parasol tree leaves, casting restless shadows like the firelight from the fallen city in my previous life. I did not dare trust Xiao Yanzhou easily, and I did not wish to fall for him again. But I had to admit that what he offered this time was not an emotional debt, it was an opportunity. I looked at Zhou Heng. "Tell General Xiao that I will attend the banquet." After he left, I looked down at the medicine. Ali lightly touched the white wrist ribbon. It was soft as spring snow, yet all I remembered was Xiao Yanzhou gravely wounded, refusing to release my hand. I closed my eyes and pushed the box away. "Put it aside. Will you not use it?" "Not yet. Some old wounds cannot be cured with a single bottle of medicine, and some lies cannot be exposed by one question." At the flower banquet, Shen Qingyin would push me before the crowd and try to place the stigma of stealing her marriage on me again. Then I would let everyone see whether the white moonlight she claimed to be was genuine or false. I had believed that the hardest part of returning to life would be facing Xiao Yanzhou. But what truly chilled my fingers was the seal on my mother's old account. The name Madame Qin was stamped neatly at the end. The vermilion had darkened with age but remained painfully visible. Ali guarded the door while I studied it. "Miss, what is wrong with your mother's seal?" "My mother died in the winter of Yuanhe's 15th year. I turned to the first page and showed her the date. "But this shipment of Northern Frontier winter grain left the warehouse in the spring of the 16th year. Ali drew a sharp breath. "How could a dead person stamp it?" "Exactly. How could a dead woman's seal appear there?" In the 3rd year after I married into the general's manor, the Northern Frontier reported spoiled military grain. Many soldiers in Xiao Yanzhou's army died. The sacks looked clean outside, but the rice within was mixed with moldy grain and sand. Xiao Yanzhou investigated for a long time. Before he found the truth, imperial censors accused the Xiao family of withholding military provisions and allowing soldiers to harass civilians. At the time, I thought it was merely a struggle in court. Now I understood that the danger had been rooted in this old Shen family account for years. What crushed the Xiao family had never been one case of spoiled grain. It was a net prepared long in advance. The forged Shen seal was only the entrance. A hidden hand inside the Ministry of War stood behind the accounts, and the person waiting to close the net had not yet appeared. I returned the book to the chest. Ali asked nervously, "If Madame Pei finds it, will we?" "That is why it cannot remain in Qingwu courtyard for long." I copied several crucial figures onto blank old paper. Ali stared at my writing with wide eyes. "Miss, I never knew you could understand accounts." My brush paused. In my previous life, Xiao Yanzhou spent 10 months of every year in military camps. The old madam was elderly, and his mother had died long ago. Household accounts, storerooms, pensions for wounded soldiers, and every other responsibility eventually fell to me. At first, I knew nothing. The steward saw that I was young and tried to deceive me with fraudulent ledgers. I stayed awake through countless nights, working the abacus until my fingers swelled and reddened. Slowly, I learned to see a person's intentions in the difference of one sack of rice, one bolt of cloth, or one tael of silver. No one praised me. They only said that, no matter how well the stolen wife of General Xiao managed the household, she could never warm his heart. I blew the copied page dry. A woman must learn to protect herself, or she may be cheated and still help the person deceiving her. Ali did not fully understand, but she nodded seriously. That night, I divided the evidence among 3 places. The original account book returned to the hidden compartment. A complete copy stayed against Ali's body. The most important page was sewn into the lining of an old cloak. The next morning, a servant from my father delivered a message. My confinement remained in force, and I was forbidden from attending the flower banquet. I had expected this. Madame Pei feared letting me leave, and Shen Qingyin feared it even more. They wanted the rumors to grow before witnesses while I remained locked in Qingwu courtyard, helpless beneath the filth thrown upon my name. I sat by the window embroidering a handkerchief and asked only, "Did father say anything else?" The servant lowered his head. "The Marquis said the second young lady behaved improperly. You may leave the courtyard when you admit your mistake." "I understand." After he left, Ali stamped her foot anxiously. "Miss, what about the banquet?" General Xiao said. "Do not worry." I cut the thread. "Someone else is more anxious than we are." That afternoon, a letter arrived from the Xiao family. It was addressed not to me, but to my father. The old northern garrison general had written personally. The Xiao proposal had become the subject of discussion throughout the capital, and both Shen sisters were now entangled in rumor. At the Grand Princess's flower banquet, both young ladies should appear and clarify the misunderstanding publicly, lest the reputation of both families be damaged. My father valued reputation above everything. Once the Xiao family made the reputation of both households the issue, he had no choice but to let me attend. At dusk, Madame Pei came personally to Qingwu courtyard, smiling. "Your father has permitted you to attend the banquet." I rose and bowed. "Thank you, Madame Pei. There will be many noble guests and much gossip. You are young and easily provoked. Stay beside your sister and me. Do not speak recklessly." I lowered my eyes. "Yes." She seemed surprised by my easy agreement. "Your sister has fallen ill because of you. As the younger one, you should yield to her. Do not worry. If anyone asks about the marriage, I will tell the truth. My sister and the young general share an unforgettable debt of life, and I am willing to bring them together." Her smile stiffened. "Must you speak of your sister that way? Is that not what she said herself?" Madame Pei studied me for a long time, then finally discarded her loving expression. "What exactly are you trying to do?" It was the first time she had spoken to me so coldly. I almost laughed. In my previous life, I exhausted myself trying to obtain a scrap of maternal warmth from her. If she gave me an old cloak or a bowl of hot soup, I would be pleased for days. Yet she had always regarded me only as a piece on a board. Now that I refused to be used, she could not even be bothered to pretend. "That is a strange question, Madame Pei. I only wish to attend the banquet peacefully." Her eyes darkened. "Shenjiwei, too much intelligence is not always a blessing for a woman. Too much foolishness is the true disaster." She left in anger. Ali held back for a long moment before whispering, "Miss, that was deeply satisfying." I did not smile. This was merely the beginning. That night, the Qin family finally sent a reply. Ali returned from Tongfeng grain shop with an ordinary copper coin whose edge had been filed into a tiny notch. My chest warmed when I saw it. That was a secret mark used by Qin merchants before my mother married. I pried open the coin. Inside was a tightly rolled strip of paper written in shopkeeper Qin's tiny hand. In Yuanhe's 16th year, northern frontier winter grain did pass through the western suburban warehouse. The Qin family accepted no such shipment. There must be a hidden trail. The old madam has been informed and will enter the capital in 3 days. Young lady, protect yourself. I read it 3 times, my fingers trembling. My maternal grandmother was alive. She knew. Ali's eyes reddened as she watched me. "Miss, the Qin family will help us, will they not?" "Yes." Only after saying it did I realize how tightly my throat had closed. In my previous life I always believed I stood alone, yet if I had only reached out, there had never been emptiness behind me. 3 days later, for the Grand Princess's flower banquet, I wore a pale blue and white dress with few ornaments. I placed only one of my mother's old white jade hairpins in my hair. As Ali adjusted my sleeves, she asked, "Are you afraid, miss?" I looked at myself in the bronze mirror. The young woman there still had youthful features, but her eyes no longer held the trapped stubbornness of my previous life. I shook my head. She will be there as well. I bore that disgrace for an entire lifetime. This time I will wash it away the moment it touches my shoulders. When the Marquis' carriage stopped before the Grand Princess's residence, I had only just stepped down when I heard a noble young woman nearby lower her voice. That is the second daughter of the Shen family, is it not? I heard she tried to steal young General Xiao and made her own elder sister ill for days. Exactly. Eldest Miss Shen is so gentle, yet that girl drove her to tears in the family hall. She looks cold and refined, but her methods are ruthless. Ali opened her mouth angrily, but I caught her arm. Let them speak. She looked unwilling. Miss, I gazed toward the blooming crabapple trees in the garden. Shen Qingyin stood beneath the blossoms, surrounded by several noblewomen. Her dress was simple and restrained today, while the powder on her face made her look precisely frail enough. When she heard the gossip, she did not stop it. She merely lowered her head and coughed twice. The others immediately looked at me with even greater disgust. I smiled. In my previous life, I feared rumors more than anything. Later I learned that rumors were not frightening because they were frightening only when no one dared drag them into the sunlight. The sun was bright today. It was the perfect time to expose every lie hidden in shadow. The Grand Princess's flower banquet was one of the capital's favorite gatherings for noblewomen. The flowers were secondary. What mattered was being seen. If the Grand Princess praised a daughter or some influential person looked at her twice, the whole capital would know by midday. In my previous life, Shen Qingyin had used this very place to turn herself into the pitiful elder sister whose marriage had been stolen, yet who still yielded gently to her younger sibling. I had only just been released from confinement then. Full of grievance, I could not bear the mockery and argued with everyone. The more I argued, the more she cried. In the end, they called me overbearing and shameless. This time I sat quietly in a corner of the flower hall, with a cup of tea, watching Shen Qingyin receive attention like the moon surrounded by stars. The young woman in emerald beside her was Miss Liu, daughter of a vice minister in the Ministry of Personnel. She was skilled at flattering those above her and despising those below. Miss Liu deliberately glanced at me and raised her voice. Sister Qingyin is simply too soft-hearted. If someone tried to steal my marriage, I would never speak in her defense. Shen Qingyin tugged gently at her sleeve. Sister Liu, do not say that. Zhuwei is young. She only made a foolish choice in the heat of the moment. I took a sip of tea. Young, foolish, every word cut like a blade. Another noblewoman sneered. She is old enough to steal her sister's match but too young to understand shame? Ali's shoulders shook with anger behind me. I set down my cup and finally spoke. Miss Liu is right. The flower hall went quiet. Everyone turned toward me. I rose and walked toward Shen Qingyin. Wariness flashed in her eyes, though her face remained weak and gentle. Little sister? I stopped 3 steps away. If someone stole my marriage, I would not defend her either. Miss Liu stared. I smiled at her. So, I would like to ask everyone present. When the Xiao family came to propose, had the marriage contract been written with my name? No one answered. Did the betrothal gifts state that they were intended for the second daughter of the Marquis of Jinan? They looked at one another. I turned to Shen Qingyin. Elder sister, that day you said publicly that you were willing to step aside for me. I also said publicly that I was willing to step aside for you. Since you and the young general share such a profound debt of life, why would I still need to steal him? Her eyes reddened at once. Little sister, must you force me here as well? I sighed. I asked you one honest question. How has that become forcing you again? Miss Liu frowned. Second Miss Shen, Sister Qingyin is in poor health. Why must you press her so aggressively? Since Miss Liu is so righteous, you must know the details of how my elder sister saved the young general. She faltered. I have naturally heard about it. From whom? She had no answer. I looked around the room, my voice steady. Everyone says today that I stole my sister's marriage. But where did this marriage come from? If it exists only because my sister said she once saved General Xiao, then perhaps she should describe what happened. That would allow me to accept the matter wholeheartedly. Shen Qingyin's face whitened. The hall became unnaturally quiet. At that moment, a familiar male voice came from beyond the doorway. Second Miss Shen makes a reasonable point. I turned. Xiao Yanzhou stood beneath the covered corridor in dark robes, his posture straight as a pine. Although the flower banquet was attended mainly by women, several sons of noble families had been invited to the outer court for archery and horse discussions, so his presence was not improper. Still, the moment he spoke, every gaze went to him. Shen Qingyin's eyes filled with tears. General Xiao, he did not approach her. He remained beyond the threshold, observing the proper distance, though his attention rested on her. Eldest Miss Shen, when I asked where I was wounded that year, you did not answer. Do you at least remember where you hid me when it rained on Mount Luoxia? Shen Qingyan tightened her handkerchief. It is not that I refused to answer. I was terrified then and much of it is unclear. Xiao Yanzhou asked calmly. Where was it? Her lips trembled. She glanced toward Madame Pei, who sat not far from the Grand Princess and already looked displeased. Receiving no rescue, Shen Qingyan whispered, in a cave. I lowered my eyes to hide a smile. There was no cave on the northern slope of Mount Luoxia. There was only an abandoned hunting hut with a cellar beneath the floor where animal hides had once been stored. Xiao Yanzhou's gaze cooled. A cave? She rushed to correct herself. Perhaps it was a hunting hut. I was too frightened then and do not remember clearly. Miss Lu could not restrain herself. General Xiao, Sister Qingyan was young and focused on saving you. It is understandable that she remembers a small detail incorrectly. I looked at Miss Lu. If you had rescued a badly wounded person, nearly been killed by pursuers, and then remembered the event years later, would you confuse a cave with a hunting hut? Her expression stiffened. I gave her no retreat. Or does Miss Lu save so many people that such matters seem unimportant? Someone in the hall laughed softly. Miss Lu's face turned crimson. Shen Qingyan's tears finally fell. Little sister, why must you humiliate me? I saved General Xiao. I did not do it so that I could be questioned publicly today. If you truly saved him, who could question you into guilt? My voice was quiet, but her face grew paler. The Grand Princess finally spoke from the principal seat. How interesting. Eldest Miss Shen claims to have saved young General Xiao, yet she knows nothing when asked. The Grand Princess was nearly 40 and famously despised affectation among women of the inner household. Once she spoke, no one dared defend Shen Qingyan. Madame Pei had to rise. Your Highness, Qingyan has been timid since childhood. What happened that year was dangerous. It is only human that she cannot remember clearly. The Grand Princess lazily stirred her tea. I have only heard that those who truly suffered remember their suffering clearly. They do not turn it into something so vague. Shen Qingyan swayed. I stood beside her and said no more. Today was not the final moment to expose her. It was enough to plant doubt in everyone's mind. But she was unwilling to stop. Looking at me through tears, she asked, Little sister, do you also believe I am pretending? We have been sisters for so many years. How can you think of me that way? Again, she tried to use sisterly affection to silence me. I met her gaze. I do not dare declare that elder sister is an impostor. She relaxed slightly. I continued. I only believe that a matter as important as a life-saving debt should be investigated. Otherwise, General Xiao may repay the wrong person. Elder sister may receive affection meant for someone else, and I may carry blame that does not belong to me. Would that not make all three of us pitiful? When I finished, Xiao Yanzhou looked at me. His gaze was deeper than before, as though he had many questions, though he did not ask them publicly. Instead, he clasped his hands toward everyone in the hall. The Xiao family's marriage has not been settled. Second, Miss Shen has never accepted a proposal. After today, anyone who accuses her of stealing a marriage is accusing the Xiao family of acting improperly in arranging this proposal. The hall fell silent. My fingers paused. In my previous life, I had stood alone at this banquet while rumors swallowed me. In this life, Xiao Yanzhou stood outside the doorway and blocked the sharpest accusation before it could strike. I did not wish to owe him gratitude, but I had to admit that he had acted justly. The Grand Princess smiled. Those are proper words, Xiao boy. The marriage has not been settled, so what marriage could have been stolen? My residence is hosting a flower banquet, not a gathering for malicious tongues. Everyone lowered their heads. Miss Lu's face was especially ugly, and she did not dare say another word. Shen Qingyan stood beneath the flowers with tears on her face, but few people now dared approach to console her. I bowed to the Grand Princess. Thank you, Your Highness. She looked at me with more approval than before. You are more interesting than the rumors suggest. Rumors are often unreliable, she laughed. Well said. Halfway through the banquet, I avoided the crowd and walked to a waterside pavilion in the rear garden. Fallen petals floated on the pond, breaking into small ripples whenever the wind moved. I had only just stopped when footsteps sounded behind me. I did not need to turn to know who it was. Xiao Yanzhou stopped a short distance away. Shen Zhiwei. I turned General Xiao. He studied me before asking, were you on Mount Luoxia that day? My heart tightened. My fingers slowly curled inside my sleeve. Why do you ask? You said a rescuer would not confuse a cave with a hunting hut. You did not sound as though you had merely heard the story. His gaze lowered to my sleeve. Wind lifted the edge of the fabric, exposing half an inch of the old scar on my wrist. His eyes stopped there, I immediately pulled the sleeve down. He neither approached nor reached for me. His voice simply softened. You said you received that wound from falling while playing. It was not a convincing lie. He did not directly expose me. After a moment of silence, he said, regarding today, I trusted rumors too easily and nearly allowed your name to be stained. I looked at him. In my previous life, a single apology from him would have kept me awake with happiness. Now my chest only ached. For that life it was too late. For this life perhaps it was not. Yet I no longer dared place myself in his hands. You do not need to apologize. Today you protected the Xiao family's reputation and upheld what was right. His brows drew together. Must you separate yourself from me so completely? I smiled. If I do not separate myself from what is not mine, should I continue carrying filth that never belonged to me? He had no immediate answer. I bowed. Thank you for today. If there is nothing else, I will leave. As I passed him, he suddenly said, Shen Jiwei, Prince Qi is also at today's banquet. I stopped. I saw eldest Miss Shen go through the western moon gate. That gate leads to the outer courtyard where the male guests are gathered. I turned back. Why tell me? He answered quietly. When you mentioned the truth of the life-saving debt, she panicked. The person she seeks when frightened may be the person she truly intends to hold on to. Something shifted in my mind. In my previous life, I knew only that Shen Qingyan later married into Prince Qi's household. I had never known they were already connected at this time. Xiao Yanzhou's warning was more useful than I expected. I looked at him. Thank you. This time the gratitude was sincere. He gazed back. Is thank you all you ever intend to say to me? My fingers tightened, but I did not answer. Other than gratitude, I did not know what remained between us. Ali's hurried footsteps came from beyond the pavilion. Miss, she ran toward us, her face pale. I met her immediately. What happened? She glanced at Xiao Yanzhou and lowered her voice. Shopkeeper Qin is here. He is waiting outside the residence and says he has found something about the northern frontier winter grain. My heart sank. The moment Xiao Yanzhou heard those words, his expression changed sharply. You are investigating military grain? I did not deny it. He stepped forward. Shen Jiwei, this is not a dispute of the inner household. I know. His eyes darkened. Then why did you not tell me? I gripped my sleeve. Because I was not certain you would believe me. He became silent. Wind moved through the pavilion, stirring the fallen blossoms across the pond. After a long time he said, From now on you may try. Shopkeeper Qin had not entered the Grand Princess's residence. He waited at a tea stall at the street corner in an ordinary gray robe. Looking like any merchant, I recognized him at once. In my previous life, when the Qin family's property was confiscated, he knelt outside the Ministry of Justice through an entire night, begging to see me. At that time I could not even leave the gates of the general's manor. Later I heard that he fell ill and died while being transported under guard. Now his hair was not yet fully white, and his back remained straight. My throat tightened. Uncle Qin. His eyes reddened. Second young lady. He bowed, but I supported him before he could finish. This is not a place to speak. Xiao Yanzhou remained several paces away, not intruding. Shopkeeper Qin watched him cautiously. I said quietly, he knows about the northern frontier grain. After a moment of hesitation, Shopkeeper Qin handed me a cloth bundle. The old madam ordered me to investigate the western suburban warehouse. In the spring of Yuanhe's 16th year, 3,000 shi of grain were transferred from there. The account says the Qin family handled the transport, but that year the Qin family accepted no northern military grain contract. I opened the bundle. Inside were several old shipping records, yellowed but carefully preserved. He pointed to one. Look here, second young lady. The transport signatures and delivery marks are all false. Genuine Qin grain caravans use Jiangnan shorthand. We would never have written them this way. My chest grew heavier as I studied the marks. Where did the grain go? The official record says it went to Yanhuiguan at the northern frontier. Shopkeeper Qin answered in a lowered voice. But I discovered that the carts were changed midway in Yunhe County. After the exchange, the original grain disappeared. What reached the frontier was another shipment of moldy grain, the same grain that killed countless soldiers in my previous life. My fingers turned cold. Xiao Yanzhou stepped closer. Is there a record of the cart exchange in Yunhe County? Shopkeeper Qin looked to me. I nodded. He took half of a torn transport voucher from a hidden layer of the cloth bundle. I found only this half. The other half should be with the warehouse steward who handled the exchange. His surname is He. The Shen household later sent him to an estate outside the city. I took the fragment. Is he alive? Yes, but others are searching for him as well. The old madam has already sent people, though they may not arrive in time. I immediately turned to Ali. Return to the residence and wait for me. She grew alarmed. Where are you going? To the estate outside the city. No. Xiao Yanzhou and shopkeeper Qin spoke at nearly the same moment. Xiao Yanzhou looked at me. You are an unmarried noblewoman. Today you publicly challenged Shen Qingyin. If you leave the city now and someone uses it against you, the rumors will become worse. I know. But if Steward Han dies, the trail ends. Too many witnesses in my previous life had died one by one in places I could not see. I could not wait again. He seemed to understand my urgency. I will go. I looked up. Steward Han once handled military provisions. The Xiao family has proper grounds to investigate him. Return to the Marquis's residence and keep the situation in the Shen household under control. If someone discovers that he has disappeared, the first thing they will observe is your reaction. He was right. Going myself would be too dangerous, yet the lessons of my previous life made it difficult to entrust an essential matter to anyone, especially Xiao Yanzhou. He met my gaze, his voice gentler. Shen Jiwei, I will not ask how you know these things, nor will I force you to surrender the account book. But this matter concerns the soldiers of the northern frontier. I must investigate it. In the past he had spoken of many obligations. He must defend the frontier. He must repay a life-saving debt. He must protect the Xiao family. He had never said he must believe me. I asked, what if the truth implicates the Shen family? The guilty will answer for their guilt. I will not protect someone merely because the surname is Shen, nor condemn someone merely because the surname is Xiao. What if it implicates my mother? Her innocence or guilt will be determined only after the evidence is verified. I gave a small smile. Young General, you are very fair. He looked at me. I was not fair enough before. The words pricked lightly at my heart. I turned away. I do not need your guilt. After a pause he said, then perhaps it is not guilt. I did not ask what it was. I did not dare. By the time I returned to the Marquis's residence from the banquet, Madame Pei and Shen Qingyin had already arrived. The moment I entered Qingwu courtyard, my father sent someone to summon me to his study. He sat behind the desk with a dark expression. Madame Pei was beside him, while Shen Qingyin stood behind her with reddened eyes. As soon as I entered, my father slammed his teacup onto the desk. You were very impressive at the Grand Princess's residence today. I bowed. I would not dare. Would not dare? He sneered. You questioned your elder sister before everyone and made young General Xiao defend you. Now the whole capital says Qingyin falsely claimed to be his savior. Are you satisfied? I raised my head. If elder sister did not falsely claim anything, what are people saying that could harm her? Shen Qingyin's tears fell immediately. Little sister, so you truly do suspect me. I looked at her. When you said a cave today, elder sister, you did not sound as though you remembered the event clearly. Her face whitened. Madame Pei said sharply, Jiwei, enough, my father shouted. Have you not embarrassed this household enough? From today onward, without my permission, you are forbidden to see anyone from the Xiao family or leave the residence. I lowered my eyes. The more anxious they became, the more deeply today's wound had landed. I obey. My father frowned, perhaps surprised that I did not argue. Madame Pei, however, did not relax. She studied me and said, My lord, Jiwei's temperament has changed greatly. Perhaps the servants of Qingwu courtyard have encouraged her. Ali has always been restless. It would be best to transfer her to my courtyard for several days and teach her proper rules. At last they had come for Ali. This was how she had been taken in my previous life. I slowly raised my head. Ali stood outside the study. Hearing her name, she turned deathly pale. Madame Pei wishes to teach my servant proper rules? I asked quietly. I am doing it for your own good. Then perhaps we should first determine who taught Nanny Zhou the rule that allowed her to crouch beneath my window in the middle of the night. Madame Pei's expression stiffened. My father frowned. What window? I bowed to him. Father did not know? Last night, Nanny Zhou from Madame Pei's courtyard brought another servant into Qingwu courtyard and pressed herself beneath my window. She claimed Madame Pei had ordered her to visit me. My father turned toward Madame Pei. It was only a misunderstanding, she said quickly. Nanny Zhou has already been punished. Since it was a misunderstanding, I will not pursue it. But now Madame Pei wishes to take Ali away and I am afraid. What if Ali enters her courtyard and accidentally learns to visit someone else's window at midnight? Would that not damage the rules of the Marquise's household? The study went silent. My father valued appearances above all. If word spread that servants had entered a legitimate daughter's chambers at night, he would lose more face than anyone. It is only one maid, he said impatiently. Let her remain. Do not mention this again. Madame Pei's expression became ugly. Outside, Ali quietly released a breath. I lowered my eyes. Thank you, father. I had protected Ali this time. When we returned to Qingwu courtyard, night had already fallen. Ali dropped to her knees before me and sobbed until she could barely breathe. Miss, I thought they were going to take me away again. My heart ached. I helped her up. Not in this life. She cried even harder. What do you mean? This lie wiped her tears. I mean from now on, as long as I am here, no one may take you away at will. She nodded fiercely. Late that night, Zhou Heng brought a message from Xiao Yanzhou. Steward Han had been rescued, but he had already been poisoned and remained unconscious. Zhou Heng also brought a small wind lamp. Its shade was made of plain white silk, and the flame inside burned steadily despite the night breeze. The young general said that reading accounts at night strains the eyes. This lamp is for you. He has also stationed men in the lane outside Qingwu courtyard. If you need anything, knock on the courtyard wall 3 times. I looked at the lamp and could not identify the feeling in my chest. In my previous life, Xiao Yanzhou had given me many cold looks, but very few gestures of such quiet care. Ali asked carefully, "Will you keep it, miss?" After a moment, I nodded. Keep it, not because I had forgiven him, but because the lamp truly made the accounts easier to read. I studied them beneath its light for half the night, and the colder my heart became. My mother's seal had not been forged only once. From the 16th to the 18th year of Yuanhe, at least 3 shipments of grain for the northern frontier had passed through the Shen family's western suburban warehouse, each larger than the last. The final page even recorded a shipment of timber meant for military equipment. As I concentrated, 3 light knocks sounded outside. I had not knocked on the wall. Someone was sending a message from beyond it. Ali immediately became alert. I approached the window and asked softly, "Who is there?" Xiao Yanzhou's voice came from the other side of the wall. "It is me." My heart jumped. A moment later, wrapped in an outer robe, I went to the courtyard wall. His voice remained low through the barrier. Steward Han woke for a moment and spoke one sentence. What did he say? "The false seal is in Madame Pei's possession. The true account will appear at the birthday banquet." I frowned. In 3 days, old Madame Shen would hold her birthday banquet. Madame Pei clearly intended to use it to attack me. Beyond the wall, Xiao Yanzhou asked, "Shen Jiwei, what do you need me to do?" I tightened my grip on the copied account pages into my sleeve. Night surrounded us while the wind lamp in the corridor cast a warm, gentle glow. "General Xiao, find me a craftsman who can identify old seals." He asked no questions. All right. Old Madame Shen's birthday banquet was lavish. It had been a long time since the Marquis of Jinan's household entertained so many guests. My father hoped the celebration would bury the recent rumors. Madame Pei intended to restore Shen Qingyin's image as a gentle woman wronged by her younger sister. I knew they also intended to use the banquet to pour the filth from my mother's old accounts onto me. On the night before the celebration, shopkeeper Qin sent a letter. My maternal grandmother had entered the capital. She did not come directly to the Marquis's residence but stayed at the Qin family's old house. The letter contained only 2 sentences. "Jiwei, do not be afraid. Your grandmother is here." I held the letter for a long time. As Ali arranged my hair, her eyes were red. "The old madam must love you very much, miss." "Yes," I whispered. "I understood it too late in my previous life. Fortunately, there is still time now." On the day of the birthday banquet, the residence was filled with guests. Shen Qingyin sat beside Madame Pei, still presenting the pale delicacy of someone newly recovered from illness. But after the flower banquet, people now watched her with a measure of doubt instead of unquestioning sympathy. She noticed it, so her smile was gentler and more careful than ever. I sat below them and drank tea quietly. Before long, Madame Pei spoke as expected. First she offered tea to the old madam, then before everyone she mentioned my mother. "My elder sister has been gone for so many years. While sorting old belongings recently, I discovered that several account books from the time she managed the household were never entered into the central records. Jiwei is young. It may be inappropriate for her to keep accounts whose significance she does not understand." The conversations in the hall gradually died away. My father frowned at me. Madame Pei sighed. "I intended to discuss this privately with Jiwei, but she has misunderstood me greatly of late. Since the clan elders are present for the old madam's birthday today, it is better to speak openly, so no one later accuses me of mistreating the child left by the first wife." Her words were elegant. She displayed her own grievance while placing me on the stage. Shen Qingyin advised softly, "Mother, perhaps my sister simply cannot bear to part with the late madam's belongings." Madame Pei's eyes reddened. "Naturally, I know that. But if the old accounts involve money from the imperial treasury, private feelings cannot come first." So they had arrived at the trap. I raised my eyes. "Is this the old account Madame Pei means?" Ali stepped forward carrying a tray. On it rested a blue-covered account book. The hall erupted in whispers. A flash of delight passed through Madame Pei's eyes so quickly that almost no one saw it. She believed I had been too young and impatient, and had foolishly produced the evidence myself. I watched her expression and laughed coldly inside. My father asked sternly, "Jiwei, what is this?" I rose and bowed. "Father, it is an old account left by my mother." While examining it, I found several entries I could not understand. Since the clan elders are present today, I hoped they might help review them. Madame Pei's brows twitched. Shen Qingyin tightened her handkerchief. I had Ali open the first page. In Yuanhe's 16th year, 3,000 shi of winter grain for the northern frontier left the Shen family's western suburban warehouse. The account says that my mother, Madame Qin, authorized the transport. An elderly clan uncle frowned. Did Madame Qin not die in Yuanhe's 15th year? Exactly. The hall exploded into discussion. Madame Pei's face sank. "Jiwei, why bring out such a thing? Do you intend to stain your dead mother's name?" "I intend to protect it." I turned toward her. "Why is Madame Pei so anxious?" Her lips tightened. "The seal on this account is false," she sneered. "You say it is false and therefore it is?" What could an unmarried girl know about seals? That was the sentence I had been waiting for. "I do not understand them, that is why I invited someone who does." At that moment, a servant entered and announced, "My lord, the old madam of the Qin family has arrived." My father shot to his feet. Madame Pei's face changed sharply. Shen Qingyin's teacup shook, spilling tea on her skirt. I turned toward the entrance. My maternal grandmother entered with shopkeeper Qin supporting her. Her hair was silver, but she remained energetic and dignified. She wore a dark brocade robe and carried an ebony cane. The entire hall quieted. The Qin family held no noble title, but it had served as imperial merchants in Jiangnan for generations and controlled major grain routes. Even the Ministry of Revenue treated it with respect. Grandmother's gaze fell first on me. That one look nearly brought me to tears. She did not call my name before everyone. Instead, she turned to my father. "Marquis of Jinan, it has been a long time." His face stiffened. "Mother-in-law, why have you come?" She gave a cold laugh. Had I not come, I would never have learned that my daughter, dead for years, could crawl from her grave to authorize grain shipments for the Shen family. The words struck my father like a slap. No one in the hall dared speak. Madame Pei forced herself to rise. "Old madam, there must be a misunderstanding." "Whether there is a misunderstanding can be determined by examining the seal." Grandmother raised one hand. Shopkeeper Qin brought in an elderly craftsman named Luo, well known in the capital for carving seals. In my previous life, he had nearly been silenced after refusing to forge a private seal for an influential household. This time, Xiao Yanzhou had found him first and hidden him safely. Craftsman Luo examined the account book for only a few moments before speaking. "This seal is an imitation. Madame Qin's true seal was carved from southern fieldstone and had a natural cloud pattern along its edge. The lines of this seal are rigid, and an extra knife mark appears at the lower right." Madame Pei's face turned pale. I asked, "Can you determine approximately when it was made?" 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago was precisely when Madame Pei gained complete control of the household. She immediately said, "What can one forged seal prove? Perhaps the account clerk falsified it." "What does that have to do with me?" I nodded. "Madame Pei is right." Her expression loosened. I looked toward the door. "Then bring in the account clerk." 2 guards escorted a middle-aged man into the hall. The moment he entered, he fell to his knees and trembled violently. Madame Pei jumped up. "Accountant Liu? Did you not return to your home village years ago?" He struck his forehead repeatedly against the floor. "Madam, spare me! Marcus, spare me!" I was forced. Nanny Zhou brought the carved seal and ordered me to place the entries into the central accounts. She said it was only to correct old records, and would cause no trouble. Madame Pei shouted, "Nonsense! You are slandering me." I watched her calmly. If Madame Pei believes he lies, what about Nanny Zhou? Nanny Zhou was soon brought in. A faint mark from the slap I had given her remained on her cheek. The moment she entered, her legs weakened and she collapsed. Madame Pei's lips went white. "Jiwei, how dare you privately interrogate someone from my courtyard?" It was not a private interrogation. Nanny Zhou slipped out of the residence last night and was seen by Qin family men near the western suburban warehouse. She carried broken silver and a letter intended for Steward Han's family. Shopkeeper Qin presented the letter. It clearly ordered Steward Han's family to remain silent or face death. My father could no longer sit still. He snatched the letter, and his face changed from green to white as he read. Madame Pei swayed. Shen Qingyin fell to her knees. "Father, mother would never do such a thing. Someone must be framing her." I looked at her. Elder sister is right. Perhaps Madame Pei was only acting for someone else. She raised her head. I continued, slowly, "Northern frontier grain is not a matter of the inner household. How would a sheltered noblewoman have the courage to tamper with military provisions by herself?" The atmosphere in the hall changed immediately. The guests had thought they were watching a household scandal, but at the words military provisions, every expression became solemn. Xiao Yanzhou entered at that moment. Zhou Heng followed him, along with Steward Han on a stretcher. Steward Han's face was gray from poison, but he struggled to kneel. "My lord, I am willing to testify. The grain in the western suburban warehouse was taken by men serving Minister Liu of the Ministry of War. The Shen family only provided the transfer point. Madame ordered the seal forged, but she could not have arranged the whole account by herself." Madame Pei's face became ashen. The letter fell from my father's hand. No one in the hall made a sound. Xiao Yanzhou looked at me. He did not cross the room to speak on my behalf. He remained at the entrance, silent and sharp as a drawn blade. I understood. He was guarding the door. This concerned my family and my mother's innocence. He had placed the weapon in my hand but left me to decide how to use it. I walked to Madame Pei. "Madame Pei, you said I was young and did not understand the importance of account books." I looked down at her. "Now tell me, is using a dead woman's seal to conceal a military grain shortage important enough?" Her lips moved but no words came. Shen Qingyin suddenly shuffled toward me on her knees weeping. "Little sister, mother was confused for a moment, but she raised you for all these years. You cannot destroy her like this." I looked at her. When she used my mother's name to conceal this crime, did she remember that my mother also gave birth to me? Shen Qingyin froze. I turned away and knelt before my maternal grandmother. "Grandmother, I have been unfilial. I allowed mother to be falsely accused for years and caused the Qin family to suffer." Grandmother's eyes finally reddened. She came forward and helped me up herself. "This is not your fault." Holding my hand, she faced the entire hall. "My Qin family's daughter is dead, but the Qin family is not. From today onward, anyone who uses her seal to fill a hole in the Shen family's accounts must first ask whether these old bones will permit it." Tears nearly fell from my eyes. In my previous life, I stood alone and could not defend myself. In this life, someone finally stood beside me and said, "This is not your fault." The birthday banquet ended as a public disaster. My father ordered Madame Pei confined. Nanny Zhou and Accountant Liu were sent to the authorities. As the guests departed, their gaze toward me had changed entirely. They no longer saw the wicked woman who stole a marriage. They saw a noble daughter who had pulled an old military grain case from beneath a dead woman's name. Before leaving, grandmother placed a warm jade bracelet around my wrist. "Jiwei, move to the Qin residence in 3 days." I stared at her. She patted my hand. "The Shen family cannot protect you. Your grandmother will." I nodded through the tightness in my throat. After she left, Xiao Yanzhou still stood beneath the corridor. I approached him. "Thank you for today." He looked at me. "Again, only thank you?" I fell silent. He handed me a secret letter. Steward Han held this before he lost consciousness. "You should read it first." The edge of the paper was scorched. It contained only one line. "Border defense map. Enter capital in the 3rd month. Deliver to Prince Qi's residence." My breath stopped. The 3rd month? In my previous life, the Xiao family had been removed from the northern frontier in the 3rd month. Only half a month remained before that date. After the birthday banquet, the Marquis of Jinnan's household became the subject of public scandal. Madame Pei was confined, Nanny Zhou and Accountant Liu were delivered to the authorities, and my father stayed away from court for 3 consecutive days. Publicly, he claimed that an old illness had returned. In truth, he feared questions about the military grain accounts. But gossip in the capital traveled more lightly than willow fluff in spring. Within 2 days, everyone knew that the Marquis of Jinnan's second wife had forged the first wife's seal and written a dead woman's name into accounts for northern military grain. Once, everyone praised Madame Pei as virtuous and generous to the daughter left by the first wife. Those words now became a joke. Shen Qingyin also fell ill. Whether the illness was genuine or performed, I did not visit her. I was occupied with moving to the Qin residence. At first my father refused. "You are an unmarried young woman. What will people think if you live with your maternal family?" I asked only, "Does father fear that my staying with the Qin family will look improper, or that the Qin family will continue examining the accounts and make this household look even worse?" He raised his hand as if to strike me, but it stopped in the air. The Qin family's carriage waited outside the gate. Nanny Qin stood beneath the corridor with more than 10 Qin guards behind her. No matter how greatly my father valued his pride, he did not dare touch me before them. I took very little, several changes of clothing, my mother's belongings, a few account books, and Ali. As I left, I looked back once at the plaque of the Marquis of Jinnan's manor, which had hung above the gate for so many years. In my previous life, I departed from this gate as a bride, carrying disgrace and standing alone. In this life, I left with Ali, the Qin family, and guards sent by my grandmother behind me. Once a person stopped begging for affection that should never have been expected, even her steps became lighter. The Qin residence was less grand than the Marquise's manor, but every corner felt warm and welcoming. I moved into Lingzhu courtyard. Fresh pale curtains had already been hung. New ink cakes rested on the desk, and a pot of white plum blossoms stood near the window, still waiting to bloom. Grandmother held my hand and looked at me for a long time. At last, she said only, "You have become thin." My nose stung and I nearly cried. Madame Pei had raised me for years, yet she had only ever said that I was not sensible enough, not obedient enough, and not willing enough to yield to my elder sister. Only grandmother looked at me once and noticed that I had become thin. That night, shopkeeper Qin delivered Steward Han's testimony. The poison had not yet left his body, and his words came in broken intervals, but he insisted on one fact. The northern frontier winter grain had indeed been transferred to different carts in Yunnan County during Qin's 16th year. The Shen family's western suburban warehouse had served only as a transfer point. One group that collected the grain came from the Ministry of War. The other came from Prince Qi's residence. At last, the net that destroyed the Xiao family in my previous life formed a complete line before my eyes. The Shen family provided the forged seal. The Ministry of War moved the grain. Prince Qi was the person waiting to close the net. My fingers tightened around the testimony. Prince Qi. In my previous life, Shen Qingyin later married him and became the admired secondary consort of his household. I thought she had simply been fortunate. Now I understood that she had not been fortunate at all. She had chosen what she believed was the more powerful match long in advance. But some branches may look high while a tiger's jaws wait beneath them. 2 days later, those jaws opened. Ali returned from gathering news outside with an uneasy expression. "Miss, the palace has issued an imperial decree." "For whom?" She bit her lip. "Eldest Miss Shen is to enter Prince Qi's residence as a secondary consort." My brush paused. A drop of ink spread across the account page. "So soon?" Ali nodded. "People say Prince Qi pitied her for the humiliation she recently suffered and admired her talent and virtue, so he requested the favor." I gave a soft laugh. If he truly pitied her, he would not have taken her into his household at this moment. The military grain case had only begun to reveal its tale, and Shen Qingyin was immediately drawn into Prince Qi's residence. This was no elevation. Prince Qi had closed his fist around her and turned her into a pawn he could sacrifice whenever necessary. Did she agree willingly? Ali curled her lip. I heard she cried while thanking the decree, and said that at last she would no longer make her younger sister feel troubled. I put down my brush. She is not crying from sorrow. Then why? She is relieved. She believes she has finally won. Ali was indignant. After harming you so many times, how can she still believe she has won? Because in her eyes, no matter how glorious the Xiao family is, it remains a military household. A general spends years at war. His wife must manage the residence, wait for him. Prince Qi's residence is different. It is a prince's household wealth, authority, and what she imagines to be a secure retreat. Ali frowned. But Prince Qi is not a good man. I closed the account book. That is why she will soon learn that what she grasped was not a path of retreat, but the handle of a blade. She thinks it is in her hand. In truth, the edge is already pointed at her. On the third day after Shen Qingyin entered Prince Qi's residence, a Qin informant delivered a half-burned letter. It had come from a spice shop behind the prince's residence. The shopkeeper's younger brother had once driven carts for the Qin family. Shopkeeper Qin asked him to watch the rear gate. That night, a young maid slipped out through a side entrance and tried to deliver the letter to an old servant of the Shen household. Qin men intercepted her outside the lane. Only several lines survived the fire. "Mother, His Highness will not permit me to enter the principal courtyard. Every day he asks how far Shenjue's investigation has reached. He says that if I cannot prove my usefulness, he will send me back to the Shen residence. I have only one path now. I must make His Highness trust me." The rest had burned away. Ali read it and sneered. She truly believed Prince Qi took her because he liked her. I did not laugh. The words made my heart heavier. The more frightened Shen Qingyin became, the more desperately she would try to prove her value. She would tell Prince Qi that I was investigating the military grain and give him the routes used by Qin grain caravans. That evening, Xiao Yanzhou came to the Qin residence as expected. He did not enter the inner courtyard. He waited in the front hall. Grandmother knew we had serious matters to discuss and stationed Nanny Qin outside the door. When I entered, Xiao Yanzhou stood beneath a lamp studying a route map. His injury had not fully healed, and his face was paler than usual, though his back remained straight. He pushed the map toward me. In 5 days, the Qin family plans to send medicine and grain to Yanhuiguan. I nodded. The caravan will take the northwestern road. Change the route, he said at once. Why? He pointed to a mountain pass marked on the map, Blackwind Ridge. Men from Prince Qi's residence have been moving through this area repeatedly today. If Shen Qingyin told Prince Qi that you are investigating the accounts, the caravan will be attacked. I did not answer immediately. He studied me. You are not surprised. I handed him the half-burned letter. His eyes darkened as he read. She has already been forced this far by Prince Qi, yet she still dares step deeper into his trap. It is not courage, I said quietly. She has nowhere to retreat. A person who has survived through lies for years fears admitting she was wrong more than she fears continuing the wrong. Shen Qingyin will make every lie larger until she can no longer control it. The grain caravan cannot pass Blackwind Ridge, he said. It must. He frowned. Shen Jiwei, I pointed to the route. The Qin caravan can divide into 3 groups and leave early. The true medicine and grain will go to Yanhuiguan by another road. 3 carts of false grain will remain to lure the attackers. He was silent. You intend to set an ambush? Yes. Then you cannot go. I raised my eyes. I must. His brows tightened further. I knew what he wanted to say. Weapons were indiscriminate. A sheltered noblewoman should not risk herself. Rumors could also harm me. I knew all of that. But I knew something else. If I did not watch the trap at Blackwind Ridge myself, the evidence might never reach my hands. If Prince Qi's guards realized something was wrong, they would silence everyone immediately. If Shen Qingyin sensed the leak, she would distance herself from the entire matter. I could not hide in the Qin residence and wait for a result. I had waited too many times in my previous life, waited for explanations, news and reinforcements until all that came was the fall of the city. I looked directly at Xiao Yanzhou. I am not going to create trouble. I know the Qin family's grain routes better than anyone, and I know Shen Qingyin's habits. You command the ambush. I will remain with the carts and help identify the men and records. We will each do what we understand. He watched me for a long time. Because it is reasonable. He seemed helpless. At last he said, stay close to the Qin guards. Do not leave the caravan. I nodded. If danger comes, protect your life first. Do not try to be brave. I nodded again. He stared at me. Shen Jiwei, I am not joking. I looked at him and suddenly remembered the night the city fell in my previous life. He had held me beneath him as blood ran from the corner of his mouth, refusing to release my hand. My voice softened without my intending it. I know. His gaze shifted, but he said nothing more. 5 days later, the attack came at Blackwind Ridge exactly as expected. The mountain road was narrow, with deep forest rising on both sides. Wind threaded through gaps in the rock like someone crying in the night. The Qin caravan had just passed the second bend when boulders rolled down from above. The horses reared and screamed. Guards drew their weapons. Masked men burst from the trees. I sat in the final carriage, gripping the wooden frame until my fingers hurt. Was I afraid? Yes. But even frightened, I had to keep my eyes open. The caravan fell into apparent confusion according to plan. The masked men surrounded the 3 carts loaded with false grain and slashed open the sacks. White rice covered the top layer, but dry grass filled the centers. Their leader froze. At that instant, Xiao soldiers emerged from both sides of the mountain road. Zhou Heng charged first and knocked the face covering from one attacker with the back of his blade. A black patterned waist token used only by Prince Qi's guards appeared at the man's belt. We had our evidence. Then an arrow shot from the forest, aimed directly at shopkeeper Qin's back. I seized a wooden chest from the carriage and threw it. The arrow shifted just enough to graze his shoulder instead. Shopkeeper Qin fell. I jumped from the carriage. Another bowstring sounded in the forest. A figure in dark robes moved faster than I did and stepped in front of me. The arrow struck Xiao Yanzhou's left shoulder. Blood spread across his clothing. My vision went dark. 1 arrow, 2 arrows, 3. The rain of arrows from my previous life surged back like a tide. Xiao Yanzhou turned toward me. His face was pale, but he still frowned. Do not come closer. I stared at the arrow in his shoulder. It had struck almost the exact place where he took the first arrow for me in my previous life. My throat closed, and no sound came. Zhou Heng led soldiers into the forest. Most of the masked men were captured. Several others bit hidden poison capsules and died before they could be questioned. Shopkeeper Qin's wound was slight, but Xiao Yanzhou had lost a great deal of blood. I had the soldiers carry him into a temporary tent. Before the military physician arrived, I cut open the fabric at his injured shoulder. The sharp metallic smell struck me, and my fingers trembled. He noticed. Are you afraid of blood? I pressed a clean cloth to the wound. I am afraid you will die. The tent fell silent. I froze at my own words. Xiao Yanzhou looked at me, something turbulent moving in his eyes. I avoided his gaze. Do not misunderstand, if you die, the Xiao army will be thrown into disorder, and the case will become much harder to investigate. After a pause, he said quietly, I understand. I will not misunderstand. Yet there was a faint smile in his voice. My ears warmed and I pressed harder without thinking. He gave a low sound of pain. I immediately loosened my hand. Does it hurt? He looked at me. No, you are lying. Your face is white. When the military physician arrived and removed the arrow, Zhou Heng dragged in one living captive. One leg had been badly broken in the fighting, and the poison capsule had been taken from his mouth before he could use it. Xiao Yanzhou asked, Who sent you? The man clenched his jaw and refused to answer. I saw the black patterned token at his belt. Prince Qi's residence, I said. His eyes flickered. Not only Prince Qi's residence, I continued. Shen Qingyan as well. His breathing faltered. I knew I had guessed correctly. She entered the prince's household fewer than 3 days ago and is desperate to prove her loyalty. She told you that the Qin caravan carried the accounts I discovered, did she not? The man's expression slowly changed. Xiao Yanzhou's voice cooled. Take him back and interrogate him. Zhou Heng dragged him away. Only Xiao Yanzhou and I remained in the tent. White bandages covered his shoulder, with a trace of red slowly spreading through them. I looked at it, my chest heavy. I miscalculated today. I believed they would only seize the grain. I did not expect archers hidden in the forest. There is no perfect plan on a battlefield, he said. You protected the caravan and obtained evidence that Prince Qi's guards were involved. But you were injured. It is a minor wound. Xiao Yanzhou. It was the first time in this life I had called him by name. He looked at me in surprise. I stared at the blood seeping through his bandage. Do not shield me from another arrow. He watched me for a long time. Outside the tent, the wind roared like the night the city fell. At last he said softly, If the next arrow comes too quickly, I may not remember your order. Pain struck my heart. Some things could not be erased simply because I had been given another life. The man from my previous life died in my arms. The man before me had again stepped into the same place and taken an arrow meant for me. I could not look at him any longer. I turned and left the tent. Only when the mountain wind touched my face did I realize that I was crying. After Blackwind Ridge, I slept poorly for 3 nights. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw Xiao Yanzhou struck by the arrow. Deeper within the nightmare waited the fire, arrow rain, and screams of the fallen city. He held me tightly while blood fell against my face, repeating, If there is another life, let me be with your elder sister. On the 4th night, I woke from the nightmare. The lamp was still burning. My hands were wet with cold sweat, and my throat felt scorched. Ali had fallen asleep on a small couch in the outer room. She had guarded me for several nights and did not hear me awaken. I put on an outer robe and went to pour water. At the window I noticed a light outside the courtyard. It was not a servant's patrol lamp. I recognized the plain white silk shade and steady flame. It was the wind lamp Xiao Yanzhou had sent me. I opened the window. Bamboo shadows moved in the night. Xiao Yanzhou stood outside the courtyard wall wearing a dark cloak. His shoulder was still bandaged. The moment he saw me, he frowned. You are awake. I leaned against the window frame, my voice still hoarse. Why are you here? Old Madam Qin said you had not been sleeping well. I stared. Grandmother knew he was here? I did not enter the courtyard, he added. I only intended to stand outside for a while. Your wound has not healed. It is nothing. His careless answer irritated me. Xiao Yanzhou, do you believe you are made of iron? It has only been a few days since Blackwind Ridge, and you are standing in the night wind. If the wound opens, the physician will spend another night treating you. A faint smile appeared in his eyes. You are worried about me. I choked on my reply and said coldly, I am afraid that if you die, no one will investigate the case. He answered with a quiet, that sound again. I wanted to shut the window, but I could not bring myself to do it. The wind was cold. He stood there straight and silent, seeming far more peaceful than he did by day. After a long while, I said, I dreamed that the city fell. I dreamed that you died. This time, he did not answer immediately. I lowered my eyes and saw that my fingers still trembled. Xiao Yanzhou, I do not want to watch you die again. Only the wind sounded beyond the window. At last he said, Shenjue, it was only a dream. I raised my head sharply. His gaze was steady. No matter how real it felt, we are both awake now. You do not have to tell me what happened in that dream or explain how you know these things. I only know you are doing everything you can to change it. My eyes grew hot. What if I cannot change it? Then continue trying. What if people still die? War always takes lives, he said quietly, without avoiding the truth. But you have already saved many. Ali is alive. The Qin family was warned. Steward Han did not die. The caravan at Blackwind Ridge was protected. Shenjue, this is not a dream. It is a road you changed with your own hands. My tears fell, but in my previous life you still died. The words left my mouth and both of us became still. I had finally said it, not a dream. Not an inference, a previous life. Xiao Yanzhou stood beneath the lights, his pupils tightening as though he had finally heard the secret I never dared voice. The wind shifted and the lamp moved gently. He remained silent for a long time. Yet he did not call me absurd or ask whether nightmares had driven me mad. He simply looked at me and spoke with a quiet certainty that seemed able to hold back a storm. Then in this life I will listen to you. My heart jolted. If you tell me to retreat, I will retreat. If you tell me to guard something, I will guard it. If you say danger lies somewhere, I will investigate it. My voice broke. Are you not afraid that I am insane? If you are, then people like us drove you to it. If there truly was another life in which I did not believe you, that is mine to regret. It is not yours to fear. I bit my lip hard. Those words carried more weight than any apology. He did not dismiss everything as a misunderstanding, declare himself innocent, or use the life-saving debt to demand forgiveness. He merely admitted that he should regret what he had done. After a long moment I said, Xiao Yanzhou, I do not need you to treat me well out of guilt. Compensation is not affection. And if you are acting only because you now know I was the one who saved you. No, he interrupted softly but firmly. At first I investigated the past because I wanted to learn who saved me. Later I investigated the military grain because it concerns the northern frontier. After that, I stood beside you because I discovered that you see more clearly than anyone, and you are braver even when you stand alone. I stared at him. Shen Jiwei, I am not repaying a debt. Then what is it? My question was so quiet that the wind almost carried it away. He looked at me while the lamplight shifted in his eyes. I want to stand beside you. My heartbeat lost its rhythm. I turned my face away, my voice unsteady. You speak less and less like a young general. He finally smiled, a faint smile that softened the night. Then what do I sound like? I searched for an answer and found none. In the end, I could only close the window. A wounded patient who refuses to rest and still stands in the night wind, I finally muttered. A soft laugh came from outside the closed window. I sat beside it and pressed a hand over my heart. The place still hurt, but the pain was no longer only the old wound left by my previous life. A faint and unfamiliar warmth had appeared there as well, like spring water breaking through ice. Early the next morning, the censorate impeached the Xiao family exactly as it had before. The charges were the same: secretly possessing a border defense map, conspiring with the northern enemy, and plotting treason. Xiao Yanzhou was summoned to the palace. I held the wind lamp he had left and suddenly understood that the tenderness of the previous night had not been an ending. It had been the final quiet moment before a great battle. I ordered Ali to prepare a carriage for the Grand Princess's residence. She asked nervously, Miss, what are you going to do? I placed the captive's testimony from Blackwind Ridge, the waste token of Prince Qi's guard, the Qin family's old grain route records, and Shen Qingyin's half-burned letter into a box. In my previous life, when the Xiao family was impeached, I remained trapped inside the inner residence and could do nothing. This time, I could at least ensure that all the blades did not fall upon Xiao Yanzhou alone. The Grand Princess was trimming an orchid when I arrived. After hearing my purpose, her scissors stopped in mid-air. Shen Jiwei, do you understand that if the evidence you present today lacks sufficient weight, Prince Qi and the Ministry of War will accuse you in return? Even the Qin family may be dragged down. The Qin family is already entangled in this affair. I knelt and raised the evidence box above my head. Your Highness, if the Xiao family is falsely condemned, the Northern Army will be shaken. If the border defense map truly has been leaked, many more people than I will die. She watched me for a long time. You are merely a daughter of a marquis's household, yet you possess more courage than many officials. I am afraid of dying as well, I said. She raised a brow. But I have seen things more frightening than death. A fallen city. Xiao Yanzhou dying in my arms. The entire capital turned into a living hell. At last the Grand Princess accepted the box. I will deliver it to the palace for you. She paused. Shen Jiwei, if this trap is broken, I will remember your contribution. I bowed. I do not want credit. What do you want? I raised my head. The truth. The Grand Princess looked at me, then suddenly smiled. Good. I also wish to see how much filth the dignified officials of this court have hidden. By the time Xiao Yanzhou left the palace, night had fallen. He was not imprisoned. The Grand Princess's evidence had arrived in time. The testimony from Blackwind Ridge, the Prince Qi guard token, Shen Qingyin's letter, and the Qin family's grain records were enough to prevent the emperor from immediately accepting the censorate's one-sided accusation. But only temporarily. The true border defense map had not yet been found. When Xiao Yanzhou came to the Qin residence, his face was very pale, not from his wound but from hours of questioning in the palace. After sitting, he drew half of a damaged map from his sleeve. Someone presented this in the palace and claimed the Xiao family had hidden it. I took it. One corner depicted the northwestern side of the capital near the old Barbican. A single glance tightened my breathing. In my previous life, the northern enemy had not entered through the main northern gate. They came around through the old Barbican. Xianzhou watched me. You know this place. I closed my eyes. In my previous life, the enemy entered the capital here. He did not correct my words or ask for proof. He only asked, why did the old Barbican fall? I forced myself to remember the nightmare. The funds for repairing the wall were embezzled. It looked complete from outside, but its inner structure was already hollow. The enemy used rams for 2 nights. Before dawn on the 3rd day, the wall collapsed. Xiao Yanzhou immediately looked toward Zhou Heng. Zhou Heng understood and left. 4 hours later he returned with news. For 3 years, the Ministry of War had allocated funds for repairs to the old Barbican. Yet an inspection showed that the cracks had only been covered with lime. The wall had never been rebuilt. The Ministry of War again. I stared at the damaged map, my fingers cold. If the true map has already reached Prince T, Xiao Yanzhou said, he intends to use the northern enemy to break the capital and then blame the Xiao family. Then we will give him a map he wants even more. He looked at me. A false one. I nodded. Use the false map to lure them. Place real soldiers at the trap. The map could not contain obvious mistakes. Prince Qi was no fool, and Minister Liu of the Ministry of War had spent years managing military supply maps. If the errors were too shallow, they would not believe it. If they were too dangerous, the false information might harm the real defenders. That night, Xiao Yanzhou and I sat in the Qin residence's study until dawn. He drew military roads. I marked grain routes. He understood troop deployment. I remembered the path used by the northern enemy in my previous life. Whenever he said a route was impossible, I broke my memories into logical conclusions. This ground looks level, but spring rain turns it into mud. Heavy northern cavalry would slow here. This point lies 3 li from the old Barbican. If Prince Qi wants the enemy to believe the defenses are weak, he will mark it as empty. It cannot truly be empty. Troops should hide here. Archers can be placed on the roofs of the houses on both sides. Timber barriers can be dropped at the lane entrance. After every observation, Xiao Yanzhou sent Zhou Heng to verify it. By morning, the reports had returned one after another. Every location I described matched the actual terrain. The way Xiao Yanzhou looked at me grew increasingly deep. I pretended not to notice. The final false map marked an area 3 li west of the old Barbican as weakly defended. In truth, the land narrowed there and allowed ambushes on both sides. If the enemy followed the false map, the Xiao army could trap them at the mouth of the valley. But to convince Prince Qi that the map was genuine, we needed a believable accident. The Qin family would have to create it. Shopkeeper Qin would pretend to transport medicine to the Xiao army camp. On the road, the caravan would be unexpectedly attacked, and the bamboo tube containing the map would be taken by Prince Qi's men. I initially refused to let Shopkeeper Qin take the risk. He smiled. Second young lady, I have traveled grain roads all my life. What kind of bandit have I not seen? I understand how to stage such a loss better than you do. Grandmother said only, your mother entrusted you to the Qin family. We protected you for her, and now we should also protect the grain routes of this country. I could not answer. These people were not pieces on my board. They were living human beings willing to face real danger for what I believe. On the night the false map was sent out, I stood in the rear courtyard of the Qin residence and watched a spark flash in the darkness. It was Shopkeeper Qin's agreed signal. The map had been taken. Prince Qi had entered the trap. The following day, another storm rose in court. The censorate submitted a new memorial accusing the Xiao family of fabricating evidence and planting the Prince Qi guard token at Blackwind Ridge. At the same time, Prince Qi entered the palace voluntarily to confess that a steward in his residence had secretly kept unauthorized guards. He claimed the steward had already taken his own life and begged the emperor to investigate impartially. He pushed every trace away from himself. But the more urgently he denied involvement, the more certain I became that the false map had reached his hands. 3 days later, an urgent report arrived from the northern frontier. A small northern cavalry unit had begun moving toward the area 3 li west of the old Barbican, the precise location marked on our false map. The emperor was finally enraged. Xiao Yanzhou requested permission to leave the city and set an ambush. I should not have gone. But the image of the fallen city from my previous life remained like a stone on my chest. Until I saw that fate changed, I could not sit peacefully. I went to grandmother. She looked at me and asked only, "Must you go?" I nodded. "I want to see with my own eyes that the battle from my previous life has been changed." She remained silent for a long time. Then she ordered Nanny Chin to bring me a light riding outfit. "Then go." I followed the Chin medicine carts out of the city. When Xiao Yanzhou saw me, his face turned frighteningly cold. Reckless, I dismounted. "I am not here to cause trouble. Weapons do not distinguish between people on a battlefield." "I know. The Chin carts carry medicine for the wounded. I also recognize several hidden roads near the old Barbican. If you wish to send me away, wait until the battle is over." He stared at me, visibly angry. Zhou Heng kept his head lowered and did not dare make a sound. At last Xiao Yanzhou said only, "Stay beside me, do not wander." The ambush came sooner than expected. As evening approached, the northern scouts entered the valley exactly as predicted. Their numbers were not large, but they were well equipped, clearly an advance force testing the route. Once they were fully inside, Xiao Yanzhou gave the order. Hidden soldiers rose from both sides. Arrows fell and war drums shook the valley. I stood behind the medicine cart, gripping its edge tightly. This was not the hopeless arrow rain of the city's fall. This was a counterattack we had prepared in advance. The northern scouts were trapped and quickly defeated. On one captured man, the soldiers found a border defense map, the same false map we had sent out. A secret mark from Prince Qi's residence remained in its corner. At last, the evidence formed a complete chain. But on the road back to the capital, an urgent messenger arrived from White Wolf Ford. The enemy's main force had suddenly moved south. This was no small scouting expedition. A large army was approaching. Their true target was neither the valley marked on the false map nor the main northern gate. It was White Wolf Ford, 30 li outside the capital. When I heard the news, the reins nearly slipped from my hand. 3 days before the city fell in my previous life, the defenders of White Wolf Ford had been wiped out. Everyone believed then that the northern enemy would come through the main northern gate. By the time they discovered the loss at the ford, it was too late. In this life we had forced Prince Qi to reveal himself early, but we had also caused the northern enemy to act early. Xiao Yanzhou rode beside me. "Shenjiwei," I looked at him. "White Wolf Ford must be held." "I know. Grain and medicine can be moved from the Qin family's southern warehouse. The water route is half a day faster than the official road. I have already sent Zhou Heng to transfer troops." I drew a breath. The old Barbican cannot be left empty. If White Wolf Ford is a diversion, they will still enter through the old Barbican. He looked at me, a bright intensity briefly entering his eyes. "You thought the same thing I did." Dawn began to lighten the horizon. The shadow of the fallen city from my previous life finally pressed down in full. Xiao Yanzhou placed a military command token in my palm. "This is a command token of the Xiao army. If disorder breaks out in the capital, you may use it to requisition medical personnel and medicine." I closed my hand around it. "What about you?" He looked north. "I am going to White Wolf Ford." My chest tightened. In my previous life, he had also left on the night before the city's final defense. When he returned, he was gravely wounded. I reached out and caught his sleeve. He lowered his eyes to me. "Come back alive," I said hoarsely. He watched me for a long time. Then he lifted one hand and gently smoothed back the hair the wind had loosened at my temple. The touch was light and gone almost immediately. "This time, I will listen to you." News that White Wolf Ford had fallen arrived at dusk the next day. But unlike in my previous life, its defenders had not been destroyed. Xiao Yanzhou arrived early, saved half the garrison, and burned the floating bridge used by the northern army to cross the river. Still, the enemy's main force continued toward the capital. Panic spread through the city. Families dragged children and belongings through the streets. Crowds packed the grain shops. Carriages overturned stalls. Children cried among barking dogs. It resembled the night before the city fell in my previous life. I stood before a Qin grain shop holding the Xiao army's logistics token. Ali's face was pale. "Miss, what should we do?" I looked at the chaotic street and forced down my old terror. "Open the warehouses." Shopkeeper Qin froze. I repeated, "Open them." The surrounding stewards changed expression. One said urgently, "Second young lady, if we open the warehouse, the crowd will rush in and destroy the shop. Then we will not let them seize the grain." I climbed the stone steps and struck the bronze gong outside the shop. Its sound cut through the uproar, and the crowd paused. I ordered the guards to place 3 long tables outside. Ali brought servants with registers. Record every household. Each household receives 3 sheng of grain. Households with elderly people, young children, or anyone ill or injured receive 1 additional sheng. Someone shouted, "Why should we trust you? What if the Qin family uses the crisis to raise prices?" I took out the Qin family's warehouse seal and stamped it on a blank public notice. From today, the Qin warehouses open their doors. We will not sell grain, we will distribute it. If anyone loots, distribution stops immediately. If order is maintained, the Qin family will continue providing porridge for 3 days. The crowd gradually quieted. Soldiers from the Grand Princess's residence arrived and helped maintain order. A woman holding a child knelt before me and wept. Young lady, my child has not eaten enough for 2 days. I personally carried a sack of rice to her. Go to the porridge shelter. Hot food is being served there. She cried harder. I did not stop working. I could not stop. If I paused, my own tears would fall. The Qin family opened 3 warehouses at once. Their medicinal supplies were transferred as well. Carts from the transport company were requisitioned, first to move elderly people and children toward the inner city, then to carry medicine to the northern military camps. Before dark, another problem came. There were not enough bandages. Wounded soldiers arrived from the direction of the old Barbican in group after group. The medical camp had used every clean cloth. Ali, sweat running down her face, saw the blood staining my wrists and nearly cried. Miss, there is no clean fabric left. I looked toward the Qin residence. Tear what? The new cloth in the Qin storeroom, my clothing. The bolts prepared for my dowry, tear all of it. Nanny Qin's expression changed. Young lady, the old madam prepared those fabrics for your marriage. A dowry matters only if people remain alive to marry. I picked up scissors and cut into a bolt of cloud brocade myself. If everyone dies, it is merely burial cloth. Ali bit her lip and ran out. Soon every maid and older servant in the Qin residence was working. Some cut cloth, some boiled water, some dried strips, and others carried bandages toward the military hospital. Ali cried while scolding herself for moving too slowly. Miss, I am not afraid. I truly am not afraid. I looked at her tear-covered face and determined hands and remembered the small silver bell clutched at the burial ground in my previous life. This time, she was alive. She was no longer the maid I had failed to protect. She was also saving lives. Around midnight, warning horns sounded from the old Barbican. I shot to my feet. The attack had come there after all. When I arrived at the northern military camp with medicine carts, flames already rose along the wall. Xiao Yanzhou had not returned from White Wolf Ford. Deputy General Chen commanded the old Barbican defenses. I presented the command token and ordered the medicine unloaded. Chen frowned when he saw me. Second Miss Shen, this is no place for women of the household. The outer wall of the old Barbican will not hold for 4 more hours. His expression changed. How do you know? The repair funds were embezzled for 3 years. The wall has lime on the surface but no solid inner support. If the enemy keeps ramming it, the wall will crack before 3 in the morning. His face changed completely. I gave him the small map I had prepared. The 2 lanes near the likely breach are narrow. Drop timber barriers in advance. Place archers on the rooftops on both sides and station close combat troops behind the shields. Once the enemy enters, close the lane and trap them. Chen examined the map with doubt. A violent impact sounded from the wall. Someone shouted, the northwest corner has cracked. He no longer hesitated and ordered defenses arranged according to the map. I moved the medicine carts into the inner lanes with Ali and the Qin guards, then had the wooden shields I had commissioned several days earlier delivered to the soldiers. Grandmother had asked then, are you certain they will be needed? I had answered, I would rather never use them than have none when needed. Now they were needed. In the pre-dawn hours, the outer wall of the old Barbican split open. Northern soldiers rushed through. Women within the city screamed. I retreated toward the inner district with Ali and several Qin guards, but a group blocked us at a lane entrance. At their head stood a woman in a cloak, her face deathly pale. Shen Qingyin. Only 2 guards remained beside her. Her hair was disordered, and nothing remained of the dignity of Prince Qi's secondary consort. The moment she saw me, a wild light entered her eyes. Shen Jiwei, I stopped. Why is elder sister here instead of Prince Qi's residence? She laughed harshly. Prince Qi's residence? The Imperial Guards have surrounded it. His Highness says everything is my fault. He intends to surrender me to bear the blame. I watched her. And? She lunged toward me but was stopped by Qin guards. Save me, she cried. For a moment I thought I had misheard. You are so capable. You saved the Qin family and the Xiao family. Why can you not save me? I am your elder sister. I felt nothing as I looked at her. When you informed Prince Qi and caused the Qin caravan to be attacked, did you remember that I was your younger sister? Her face whitened. I only wanted to protect myself. So do I now, she suddenly shouted. What of it? Everyone has to look out for themselves. If you had surrendered Xiao Yanzhou to me earlier, if you had remained as foolish as before, how would I have fallen this far? Ali cursed. Eldest young lady, how can you still say such things? Hatred flashed in Shen Qingyin's eyes. She pulled a short blade from her sleeve, while her two guards moved at the same time. I stepped back. Qin guards intercepted them. In the confusion, Shen Qingyan shouted toward the city gate. She is here. Shen Zhuwei is here. She carries a Xiao military token. My heart went cold. Several northern scouts in the distance heard her and immediately turned toward us. To save herself, Shen Qingyan had tried to trade my life for her escape. In my previous life, she had burdened me with infamy. In this life, she wanted to send me to my death. Unfortunately for her, I was no longer the woman who allowed herself to be pushed into every fire. I pulled a signal flare from my sleeve and lit it. The flame rose into the sky and burst overhead. Hoofbeats thundered from the far end of the lane. Xiao Yanzhou had arrived. His silver armor was damaged and stained from battle, proof that he had ridden directly from White Wolf Ford. Yet as he charged into the lane, his eyes found me at once. A northern archer drew his bow. The moment I saw the arrow aimed at my chest, the burning city from my previous life overlapped with the present. The same flames, the same arrows, the same Xiao Yanzhou moving in front of me. He leaped from his horse and rushed toward me by instinct. Pain clenched my chest. No, not again. I could not let him use his life to protect me again. With all my strength I shouted, "Xiao Yanzhou, step back 3 paces!" His movement stopped. The danger was immediate. Everyone expected him to continue forward. But he looked at me for only an instant, then truly stepped back 3 paces. At the same moment, tin guards hidden on the roofs pulled their ropes. Wooden shields prepared on both sides of the lane crashed down. The arrows struck their surfaces in a dense series of impacts. Xiao soldiers leaped from the rooftops and surrounded the northern scouts. Behind the shield, my entire body trembled, not from fear, but because the nightmare that had trapped me for a lifetime finally split open. Xiao Yanzhou reached me and seized my wrist. "Are you hurt?" I looked at him. He was alive. He had not suffered the fate I remembered. His hand was warm. I could no longer hold myself together. I gripped his hand with both of mine. No. Only when the word came out did I realize I was crying. His eyes were red, but he did not ask how I knew he should retreat 3 paces, or why I had arranged shields in advance. He only tightened his hand around mine. "I heard you," he said. "Shen Zhuwei." This time I listened. The remaining northern scouts were quickly eliminated. Shen Qingyan was pinned against the wall, her face gray. She stared at our joined hands and suddenly laughed. "Why?" she cried. "Why do you have everything?" I wiped away my tears and walked to her. "Because I stopped placing my life in other people's hands." She froze. Warning horns sounded from the distant wall. Xiao Yanzhou released my hand and returned to the defense. I stood in the lane and watched his back. In my previous life he died in my arms and asked me to bring him and my sister together. In this life, before the arrows came, he stepped back 3 paces because he chose to trust me. Fate could truly be changed as long as I did not remain silent this time. By dawn, the old barbican was secure. Letters proving Prince Qi's collusion with the enemy were delivered to the palace by the Grand Princess's people. The final letter bore Shen Qingyan's private seal. On the 3rd day after the capital was saved, the emperor summoned the Xiao family, the Qin family, the Marquis of Jinan's household and Prince Qi's faction to confront one another in the palace. Ordinarily, I would not have been permitted inside the hall, but the Grand Princess personally sent someone to the Qin residence. Her Highness says the evidence was submitted by you, and the trap was broken because of you. It would be a pity if you missed today's spectacle. Grandmother adjusted my clothing. She did not say that a woman should not enter court or witness such brutal political matters. She asked only, "Are you afraid?" I shook my head, then nodded. "I am." Grandmother smiled. "Then go while afraid." She held my hand. "Zhuwei, you are not entering the palace today to prove your courage. You are going so that those who treat women as game pieces will understand that a piece can overturn the board." My eyes grew hot. When I arrived at the palace, Xiao Yanzhou was already waiting outside the hall. He had changed into clean court robes. His old and recent injuries had not fully healed, and his face was somewhat pale. The moment he saw me, he approached. "Did you sleep?" I stared, surprised that this was his first question. 4 hours. He frowned. "Too little." I looked at him. "How long did General Xiao sleep last night?" He fell silent. I smiled. "Then you are not qualified to lecture me." A faint smile entered his eyes. The hall doors opened, and that softness disappeared beneath solemn restraint. We entered one after the other. Prince Qi knelt in the center, still wearing the robes of a prince, though his crown was disordered. Lu Huaiqian, the Minister of War, knelt beside him. His face was gray, but he maintained the appearance of an elderly loyal official unjustly accused. Shen Qingyan knelt at the far end in prison clothing, all color gone from her face. When she saw me, hatred flared in her eyes. I did not look at her. The emperor sat on the throne with a dark expression. The grand princess sat to one side holding tea, outwardly calm. A censor spoke first, continuing to insist that the Xiao family had hidden the border defense map. Your Majesty, the Xiao family has commanded great armies for years. Until the accusation of concealing the map is disproved, the Xiao family cannot be declared innocent. The so-called waste token from Prince Qi's residence and the testimony of northern captives may all have been fabricated. Prince Qi immediately bowed low. Father, I have been wronged. A steward in my residence did secretly maintain private guards, but I discovered that he had been deceived by a junior official of the Ministry of War. He has already taken his own life. I would never collude with the enemy. Lu Huaiqian straightened on his knees. Your Majesty, I have served the country for 30 years. How could I embezzle military grain or conspire with northern invaders? Before the Xiao family has cleared its own name, it is sinister for them to accuse the Ministry of War. They were remarkably skilled at twisting the truth. If we possessed only the testimony from Blackwind Ridge, it would indeed be insufficient. Courses could be arranged, tokens planted, and captives forced to confess. Prince Qi had resisted this long because he believed the final link in the chain was missing. The emperor looked at Xiao Yanzhou. General Xiao, what do you have to say? Xiao Yanzhou stepped forward. I have 3 pieces of evidence. The first is the false map. He presented the border defense map found on the Northern Scout. Second, Miss Shen and I deliberately prepared this map. Its corner bears the secret seal of Prince Qi's residence. The Northern Scouts followed it into our ambush. If Prince Qi's household had no contact with the enemy, why was this map found on a Northern Scout? Prince Qi answered at once. Someone stole my residence's private seal to frame me. The Grand Princess laughed softly. The private seals of Prince Qi's residence appear easier to steal than buns from a roadside stall. Prince Qi's face whitened. Lu Huaiqian said quickly, a private seal alone cannot determine guilt. Xiao Zhanzhou continued. The second evidence concerns military grain. Shopkeeper Qin was brought forward and presented the Qin grain route accounts, the Western warehouse transport records, the torn voucher from Yunhei County, and Steward Han's testimony. Supported by an attendant, Steward Han knelt. His voice was weak but clear. In Yuanha's 16th year, the northern frontier grain was transferred to new carts in Yunhai County. A subordinate serving Minister Lu collected the original grain. Moldy grain was sent north instead. After I handled the exchange, they tried to kill me. I hid on a country estate for years. Lu Huaiqian shouted, nonsense, is the word of one poisoned and injured steward now treated as truth? I finally spoke. Minister Lu is correct. The testimony of one steward is not enough. Every gaze in the hall turned toward me. I stepped forward and raised a copied set of records. That is why we also have 3 years of withdrawal records from the Western Suburban Warehouse, grain allocations issued by the Ministry of War, the cart exchange register from Yunhai County, and half of the private seal left when the steward of Minister Lu's residence signed for the grain. Lu Huaiqian's expression changed sharply. The Qin family found the half-seal hidden in a compartment inside the old transport company's account room in Yunhai County. In my previous life, that building had burned. This time, the Qin family reached it first. A palace attendant took the evidence and placed it before the emperor. The emperor studied it for a long time, his expression becoming increasingly dark. Lu Huaiqian attempted to argue, but the Grand Princess said calmly, Minister Lu, if you intend to say the seal is false as well, I also possess a written confession from the steward of your own residence. He confessed last night that he collected the grain on your orders. Lu Huaiqian collapsed onto the floor. Sweat appeared on Prince Qi's forehead, but he still refused to admit guilt. Father, corruption in the Ministry of War had nothing to do with me. I was deceived as well. The emperor looked at him, disappointment and anger mixed in his eyes. What is the third piece of evidence? Xiao Yanzhou did not answer immediately. He looked at me. I turned toward Shen Qingyan at the far end of the hall. She seemed to understand and raised her head sharply. The third piece of evidence rests with secondary consort Shen. She screamed, Shenjue, are you going to harm me again? I walked toward her. Elder sister, the private seal used on messages sent from Prince Qi's residence belongs to you. Her face became deathly pale. I did not know. I only delivered several family letters for His Highness. I did not know they were messages to the enemy. You did not know? I produced the half-burned letter. In the letter you wrote to Madame Pei, you said Prince Qi questioned you daily about the progress of my investigation. The day before the attack on the Qin caravan at Blackwind Ridge, your maid left the residence to deliver a message. The family intercepted this fragment. A captured guard from Prince Qi's residence confessed. And now a secret letter bearing your private seal has been found on a northern scout. I looked at her. Elder sister, there are too many things you claim not to know. Shen Qingyan trembled violently. I was forced. His Highness forced me. Prince Qi's face changed. Wretched woman, you dare betray me? The words seemed to wake her completely. She turned, crawled toward the throne, and cried, Your Majesty, it was Prince Qi. Everything was Prince Qi. He did not take me into his residence because he pitied me. He only wanted to know how far Shen Jiwei had investigated. He said that if I was useless, he would send me back to the Shen household and ensure I could never hold my head up again. Prince Qi shouted, You are lying. I am not lying. Shen Qingyan sobbed. There are northern gold tokens in a hidden compartment in his study and account books sent by Minister Liu. I saw them. I saw everything. The hall became silent. Prince Qi finally understood what she had revealed. His face went gray. The emperor struck the table and ordered, Search the residence. The imperial guards departed at once. Prince Qi collapsed. Lu Weichen closed his eyes, seeming to age 20 years. Shen Qingyan remained on the floor, shaking with sobs. I watched her without triumph or pity. She told the truth only at the end, not because she regretted anything, but because she finally realized that she had been used as a chess piece. An hour later, the imperial guards returned with the contents of the hidden compartment in Prince Qi's study. Northern gold tokens, Ministry of War accounts, drafts of secret letters, and copies of the true border defense map. The evidence was complete. Prince Qi could no longer argue. The emperor stripped him of his princely title and ordered him imprisoned by the imperial clan court. Lu Huaichen was dismissed and imprisoned for collusion with the enemy and embezzlement. The 3 judicial offices would conduct a joint trial. Shen Qingyan was sent to the Ministry of Justice for assisting Prince Qi, transmitting secret messages, and concealing the military grain conspiracy. As court ended, Prince Qi stopped while being escorted past me. His eyes were cold. Shen Jiwei, I was defeated by a sheltered young woman like you. I looked at him. Your Highness is mistaken, he sneered. You were not defeated by me. You were defeated because you never treated women, common people, or soldiers as human beings. His expression stiffened, and the guards pulled him away. The Grand Princess approached from behind me. Well said. I turned and bowed. She smiled faintly. Shen Jiwei, today I finally understand why that Xiao boy looks at you as though he is looking at a city. My ears warmed. Your Highness should be careful with such words. She laughed. Now you know how to blush? You were magnificent when you confronted Prince Qi. I had no answer. When I walked out of the palace, Xiao Yanzhou waited at the foot of the white jade steps. Daylight rested on his shoulders like a thin layer of frost. He saw me and held out his hand. This time, I did not avoid it. I placed my hand in his palm. He held it gently, not tightly but with a steadiness that made me feel safe. Shen Jiwei, yes, you were remarkable today. I looked up. Only today? He paused then smiled. Every day. I turned my face away, but I could not stop the curve of my lips. In my previous life, I carried disgrace for years. No one waited for me at the palace gates when the truth finally came to light. In this life, someone waited, not for me to admit fault or lower my head, but to return home with me. On the day Prince Qi's residence was searched, heavy rain fell over the capital. It washed the bloodstains from the long streets and eased the tension that had hung over the city. The northern army withdrew. White Wolf Ford was fortified again. The old Barbican was repaired through the night. The Xiao army had protected the city. Qin grain and medicine had saved half the capital. Document after document reached the emperor, proving Prince Qi's treason, the Ministry of War's corruption, the forged map, and the attempt to destroy the Xiao family. Prince Qi was reduced to commoner status and later sentenced to death by the imperial clan court. Minister Lu Weiqian's entire household was imprisoned for treason and corruption, and the principal offenders were sentenced to execution after autumn. Madame Pei was divorced by my father for forging my mother's seal and participating in the military grain accounts. She was sent to a family temple. On the day she left, her hair was disordered, and nothing remained of the dignity of a virtuous stepmother. My father came to the Qin residence to see me. I refused. Later, he personally waited outside the Qin gates in the rain for an hour. Grandmother asked, "Will you see him?" I thought for a long time. In the end, I had Ali take him a thick cloak and a purse of silver. When she returned, her eyes were slightly red. The Marquis asked whether you still acknowledge him as your father. I sat by the window watching rain strike the banana leaves. What did you answer? I repeated your words. 1 winter cloak repays the debt of giving you life, and 1 purse of travel silver repays the debt of raising you. As for the bond between father and daughter, it ended the day he forced your name onto the marriage contract. I lowered my eyes. I felt neither the satisfaction nor sorrow I had imagined. Only an empty place remained. Some family ties had died in my previous life. In this one, I merely buried them. Because the Marquis's household had participated in the old military grain case, my father was eventually stripped of his title and exiled. I did not see him off. Shen Qingyin's judgment came later. She was not the principal conspirator, but she had transmitted the Qin caravan route to Prince Qi and used her private seal for his messages. The capital also learned how she had falsely claimed to be Xiao Yanzhou's savior and framed her younger sister. The reputation she treasured more than anything was destroyed. What she wanted most had never truly been Xiao Yanzhou or Prince Qi. She wanted to remain the spotless white moonlight in everyone's eyes. Now the stolen life-saving deed, secret messages, and pursuit of Prince Qi were all exposed. She feared stains more than anything, yet she became someone whose name could never be washed clean. She was sentenced to exile 3,000 li away. Before she was sent into exile, she requested to see me. I went. Not because my heart softened, but because I wanted to see where the person who burdened me with disgrace in my previous life had finally arrived. The prison was cold. Shen Qingyin wore rough prisoner's clothing. Her hair was disordered, and her face bore none of its former carefully applied makeup. When she saw me, she stared, then suddenly laughed. You won. I stood outside the cell without answering. She fixed her gaze on me. You knew from the beginning, did you not? From the day of the proposal, you knew I was not the person who saved him. Yes. Resentment flooded her eyes. Then why did you not expose me immediately? Because no one would have believed me then. And because I wanted you to finish telling your own lie. Her face twisted. Shen Jiwei, you are cruel. I shook my head. Elder sister, I simply stopped being foolish. She stared at me and suddenly asked, what about Xiao Yanzhou? Are you truly going to marry him? Have you forgotten how he treated you before? My heart shifted slightly. She still wanted to use my old wound against me, but that thorn could no longer enter. Whether I marry him has nothing to do with you. She laughed bitterly. He only feels guilty because he discovered he recognized the wrong woman. Without that half pendant, would he ever have looked at you? I found that the words no longer hurt. Once, I feared above all that I was only a substitute, that Xiao Yanzhou saw his savior rather than me. But during this journey, he had defended my name without demanding my gratitude. He investigated the grain without taking credit from me. Before the arrows, he listened and stepped back 3 paces. Guilt alone could not have done those things. Elder sister, you still do not understand. She clenched her teeth. Understand what? Stolen affection cannot keep a person. And what truly belongs to me does not depend on you surrendering it. The guards urged me to leave. As I turned, Shijing cried behind me, Shen Jiwei, if there is another life, I will not lose to you. I stopped. If there is another life, elder sister, first learn not to steal what belongs to someone else. I did not look back again. Outside the prison, the sunlight was bright enough to make my eyes sting. Shenzhou stood beneath the stone steps waiting for me. His injuries had not completely healed. A dark cloak hung over his shoulders and his face was paler than usual. I walked to him. Why are you here? I was afraid you would be upset. I smiled. I am not. He looked at me but did not expose the lie. We walked side by side for a while. The streets had begun to recover their liveliness. Vendors were setting up their stalls again, and children ran past chasing sugar figurines. The damage to the distant city wall had not yet been fully repaired, but craftsmen were already at work. The capital had survived. So had I. At the Qin residence gate, Xiao Yanzhou stopped and drew a small wooden box from inside his robe. There is something I should return to you. I opened it. Inside lay the half of the Langya jade pendant he had treasured for so many years. I took the other half from my sleeve and placed them together. They fitted perfectly, their cracks joining into one line. Xiao Yanzhou looked at the complete pendant and spoke quietly. You were the person who saved me on Mount Luoxia. Yes. He closed his eyes briefly. I mistook someone else for you for years, and I wronged you for just as long. I looked at the jade and said nothing. In the past, I thought gratitude was the same as affection, and a promise was enough for a lifetime. Only later did I understand that what I called devotion was merely being led by a lie. He looked at me. Shen Jiwei, I do not ask you to forgive me because you saved my life. My fingers trembled lightly. Nor do I ask you to turn back because I protected you in the life before this one. I raised my eyes sharply. He knew. He had understood all along that I carried a strange and crushing previous life, yet he had never forced me to explain it. His eyes were red, but his voice remained steady. I ask only one thing today. If there were no debt of life, no guilt, and none of those mischances or misunderstandings, would you be willing to look at me again? It felt as though a spring breeze had gently opened my heart. After a long time I said, Xiao Yanzhou, I am afraid. I know. I am afraid we will return to the road from our previous life. We will not. How can you promise that? He looked at me and answered each word clearly. Because in this life I will listen when you speak, trust your judgment, and respect what you choose to do. If I lose my senses again someday, you need not endure it. Use this jade pendant to knock some sense into me. I could not stop myself from laughing, though tears fell at the same time. He raised a hand as if to wipe them away, then stopped in midair. Seeing how careful he was, I remembered the day of the proposal, when he had also reached toward me and I had avoided him. This time, I did not move away. I stepped forward and rested my forehead lightly against his chest. His entire body stiffened. Then he held me with extraordinary care, as though holding a spring breeze he had lost and finally regained. Afterward, the court's rewards and punishments were announced one after another. The Xiao family was cleared of every accusation. For defending White Wolf Ford and the Old Barbican, Xiao Yanzhou formally assumed command of the Northern Garrison Army. For protecting the grain and helping save the city, the Qin family received a plaque inscribed, "Righteous Merchants Who Protected the Nation." Shopkeeper Qin was rewarded with 100 taels of silver for helping uncover the old military grain case, but he immediately donated all of it to the camp for wounded soldiers. Steward Han was pardoned because of his testimony. The Qin family arranged for him to retire on an estate in Jiangnan. Craftsman Luo was also pardoned for his contribution. The Grand Princess's residence employed him as its official seal craftsman, and no one ever again dared force him to carve a false seal. Zhou Heng was promoted to deputy general. On the day of his promotion, he brought 2 boxes of refreshments to the Qin residence. I assumed he had come with a message for Xiao Yanzhou, but he stood outside the courtyard gate for a long time, his face as red as though it had been held over a fire. Ali passed carrying an account book, and he stopped her. "Miss Ali," she jumped. "Deputy General Zhou, do you need something?" He coughed twice and drew a small silver bell from his clothes. "I found this near the Old Barbican. It looks as though it belongs to you." Ali looked down, and her face immediately reddened. It was indeed hers. In my previous life she had died clutching the small silver bell I once gave her. In this life, the bell did not fall at a burial ground. It fell on the road where she helped save wounded soldiers. Watching from beneath the corridor, I could not help smiling. Ali turned and glared at me. "Miss." I immediately turned away. I did not see anything. Nanny Qin laughed until her eyes nearly disappeared. At last, our days seemed to descend from the edge of a blade and return to ordinary human warmth. 1 month later, the Xiao family came to propose marriage again. The sky was clear and betrothal gifts filled the space before the Qin residence. There were no calculations or tears like those in the Shen family hall of my previous life. Grandmother sat in the principal seat. The Grand Princess came personally as matchmaker, and every member of the Qin household looked delighted. Xiao Yanzhou did not let the elders speak for him. He personally carried the ceremonial wild goose used in the betrothal rite and walked up to me. The young general still had cold, sharp features, but his eyes were entirely gentle when he looked at me. I, Xiao Yanzhou, asked to marry Shen Jue, not because she saved my life, not because I owe her, and not to fulfill anyone else's wishes. The hall became quiet. He looked directly at me and continued, each word deliberate. I ask because I love her, respect her, and wish to guard the realm beside her for the rest of our lives, growing old together. Looking at him, I remembered the day the city fell in my previous life. Gravely wounded, he had asked me to let him be with my elder sister if there was another life. Those words had once remained in my heart like a blade. Now the blade had been removed, and light finally reached the wound. I accepted the marriage contract from grandmother and walked towards Xiao Yanzhou. "This time I am not ruining your life," I said, looking into his eyes. "Nor am I bringing anyone else together." His eyes reddened. I placed the document in his hand. "I am willing." People in the capital continued to discuss the Shen family's old affairs. Some said the second daughter of the Marquis of Jinan had been fortunate, since after so many turns she still married the young general. Others said it had nothing to do with fortune. She had fought her own way out of a hopeless trap. By the time I heard those rumors, I was sitting in the general's manor, reviewing the newest military grain accounts from the northern frontier. Xiao Yanzhou returned from outside, saw me studying them again, and took the brush from my hand. "Madam, it is only the 3rd day of our marriage. Must you already examine accounts?" I looked up. "Should I leave the military grain unchecked and let you go to war hungry?" He laughed softly, bent down and kissed my forehead. "Then I will trouble madam to manage my grain for the rest of my life." My ears warmed, but I said deliberately, "I manage only grain, not people." He took my hand and placed the complete Langya pendant in my palm. "I belong to you as well." Spring wind moved through the courtyard and parasol tree leaves rustled overhead. I looked at the jade in my hand and felt the tragedy and fire of my previous life finally recede. In this life the city did not fall, Xiao Yanzhou did not die, Ali did not die, grandmother did not leave the world carrying regret. And I no longer had to sacrifice myself for someone else's happy ending. I had chosen myself. At last I had also found the life that truly belonged to me. Epilogue. General Xiao's campaign for attention. In the 3rd month of our marriage, I discovered that Xiao Yanzhou appeared calm and stern, but was actually extraordinarily petty. How petty? Petty enough to become jealous of an account book. A new set of military grain accounts arrived from the northern frontier. I sat in the study reading them for 4 full hours. Ali replaced my tea 3 times, and the pastries shopkeeper Chinsent had gone cold, yet I was still working the abacus. When Xiao Yanzhou returned from the military camp with the cold wind still clinging to his clothes, his first words were not to ask whether I had eaten or whether I was tired. He stood before the desk, stared at the account book in my hands and asked coldly, "How long did it keep you company today?" I did not understand. "Who?" He tapped the thick military grain ledger before me. "It." I looked at the book, then at him. He wore an expression as solemn as though he were interrogating a northern spy. I suppressed a "General Xiao, are you jealous of an account book?" His expression did not change. "No," I nodded. "Of course not," he added. "I merely find it excessively irritating." I burst out laughing. Ali stood at the doorway with her shoulders shaking from the effort not to join me. Xiao Yanzhou glanced at her. She immediately lowered her head. I heard nothing. Then she turned and fled, nearly colliding with Zhou Heng outside. He held a stack of military reports and almost dropped them. "Miss Ali, why are you running?" She covered her mouth. "Nothing. The young general is arguing with Madame's account book." Zhou Heng's eyes widened. "What?" He leaned in to look. Xiao Yanzhou said coldly, "Zhou Heng." He straightened at once. "Yes, General. Has the stable at the military camp been cleaned today?" Zhou Heng's face paled. "I will go immediately." He ran away faster than a rabbit. I laughed until I collapsed over the desk and scattered the abacus beads. "Is it so amusing?" "Yes." He came over and took the brush from my hand. "Stop reading. 3 pages remain. Read them tomorrow. The grain will be dispatched tomorrow." Let Zhou Heng read them. I looked up. "Are you certain?" Last time he read 3,000 shi as 300 shi, and nearly starved the soldiers at Yanhuiguan into joining the immortals. Outside the door, Zhou Heng's foot slipped. "Madam, the writing was too small that time." I turned. "Can you read it clearly now?" He fell silent, then quietly retreated. Xiao Yanzhou closed the account book and pressed one hand over it, as though pinning down an enemy commander. "Come eat." I looked at his hand. "Xiao Yanzhou." "Yes?" "Pressing it down will not make it surrender." He gave me a calm glance. His seriousness made me laugh even harder. In the end, he did drag me to dinner, or rather, drag was not quite accurate. He simply stood before me in silence for a long time. I finally asked, "What exactly do you want?" He said quietly, "Madam, military grain is important. Your husband is also important." The brush fell from my fingers. Ali began coughing loudly outside the door. My ears burned. "Your words become less proper every day." Xiao Yanzhou remained solemn. "I am stating a fact." Unable to answer, I stood. He immediately took my hand with the same ease with which he would take up a horse's reins. I glanced down. "In broad daylight?" he asked. "May I not hold my wife's hand in broad daylight?" I suspected that the cold, silent young general from before our marriage had secretly been replaced. More frighteningly, everyone in the general's manner had already become accustomed to him. The old madam saw him leading me to dinner and smiled so widely that the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes deepened. Good. This is how newlyweds should behave. My face grew hot, while Xiao Yanzhou calmly placed a piece of fish in my bowl. "Eat more." The old madam turned to me. "Zhuwei, you have become thin. No matter how busy the accounts are, you must eat." I was about to say that I had not become thin when Xiao Yanzhou answered. "Grandmother is right," she continued. "Yanzhou, do not spend every day at the military camp. You are newly married. Stay with your wife more often." "Grandmother is right," he said again. I stared at him. Why was he so agreeable today? The old madam nodded with satisfaction. "Then the 2 of you should rest early tonight." I nearly choked on my soup. Xiao Yanzhou remained perfectly calm. "Grandmother is right." I stepped on his foot beneath the table. His expression did not change. He even served me another half bowl of soup. "Drink slowly." I glared. "Grandmother is watching," he whispered. I clenched my teeth. "General Xiao, you have become very good at using the situation to your advantage. Madam taught me well." He truly had learned bad habits. After dinner, I intended to return to the study. Xiao Yanzhou reached it first and took away the key. I stood before the closed door. "The key, I lost it." I held out my hand, Xiao Yanzhou. He looked innocent. "I truly lost it." I looked at his waist. The key hung there in plain sight, its red cord not even hidden. What is that? He lowered his eyes, remained silent for a moment, then said another key. I laughed in disbelief. Do you think I am Zhou Heng? Zhou Heng, who happened to be passing nearby, stopped. Madam, I heard that. Ali slapped his arm from behind. Then hear it. You once truly believed the young general when he said the sun had risen in the west. Zhou Heng looked wounded. He said it so seriously. Ali rolled her eyes. If you ever lie to me that way, you will sleep in the stable. Zhou Heng immediately became solemn. I will not lie to you, she snorted. Then what about the osmanthus cakes you promised to buy yesterday? His face stiffened. Ali narrowed her eyes. You forgot, did you not? He spun around. I will buy them now. The shop in the southern city, she called. After 2 steps, he turned back. Which shop in the southern city? She stamped her foot. How many shops can sell osmanthus cakes? He thought seriously. 3. I laughed until my stomach hurt. Xiao Yanzhou watched them. Zhou Heng truly needs more practice before marriage. Practice what? I asked, remembering what his future wife likes. I paused. He suddenly drew an oil paper parcel from his sleeve and placed it in my hands. It was still warm. Inside were plum blossom pastries from my favorite shop in the western city. The shop made only 20 portions a day, and they were often sold out. When did you buy these? Did you not come from the military camp? The camp is north of the city, and the pastry shop is west. I took a detour, he said calmly. Looking at the parcel, my heart softened completely. This man could become jealous of an account book and behave with ridiculous childishness. Yet at such moments he always left me speechless. I took one pastry and bit into it. Sweet fragrance spread across my tongue. Xiao Yanzhou watched me. Is it good? I nodded. A small smile entered his eyes. Then may the account book lose today, I nearly choked. After circling so far, he had returned to the same subject. No, I said deliberately. His smile disappeared, I added. But it may accept a draw, he frowned. A draw? I held the pastry to his lips. The account book has me during the day, you have me in the evening. The moment the words left my mouth, I froze. Xiao Yanzhou froze as well. The wind in the courtyard seemed to stop. Then Ali dropped a tray with a loud crash. Zhou Heng had just returned with the cakes. Hearing me, he stumbled and nearly fell into the flower bed. The old madam had somehow appeared beneath the corridor. She smiled broadly. Excellent. A very sensible arrangement. My face burned. She waved a hand. I heard nothing. Continue. Then she turned and walked away at a leisurely pace. Xiao Yanzhou looked at me, the amusement in his eyes deepening. I wished the ground would open beneath my feet. That is not what I meant. He leaned closer. Which meaning did you not intend? I glared. You know perfectly well. He bent to my ear. Madam, I do not know. I covered his mouth with my hand. Be quiet. His eyes were full of laughter. Compared with the cold Xiao Yanzhou of my previous life, who refused to say anything, this man who could become jealous, pretend not to understand, and tease me was far more difficult to resist. Worse still, he truly remembered my careless sentence. From then on, as soon as evening arrived, he appeared at the study door. Whether I was checking accounts, writing letters, or discussing grain routes with shopkeeper Chin, he said only one thing. Madam, evening has arrived. The first time, shopkeeper Chin sent abacus beads flying. The second time, Ali laughed until she nearly crouched on the floor. The third time, Zhou Heng seriously asked, Young General, is that something one may say only after marriage? Xiao Yanzhou looked at him. First learn to buy the correct osmanthus cakes. Zhou Heng nodded gravely. Understood. Ali sneered beside him. He does not understand. I collapsed over the desk, laughing helplessly. The general's manner had once been extremely quiet. Xiao Yanzhou spent most of the year at the military camp, and because the old madam devoted herself to worship, even the servants walked softly. Now everything was different. Ali chased Zhou Heng for osmanthus cakes. When he bought them from the wrong shop, she made him crack walnuts for an entire afternoon. The old madam asked every day whether I had eaten properly and rested early. Xiao Yanzhou hid my account books and then pretended innocence. One day, he hid one so well that I searched for an hour. At last I found it beneath his pillow. Holding the ledger, I stood beside the bed. General Xiao explained. He had just bathed and wore a pale sleeping robe. His expression remained calm. It wanted to sleep here. I nearly laughed from anger. The account book grew legs? Yes. And crawled beneath your pillow? He nodded. It is very calculating. I raised the ledger to hit him lightly, but he caught my wrist and gently pulled. I lost my balance and fell into his arms. The account book landed on the couch with a slap. He looked down at me. The faint smile in his eyes was as gentle as spring water. Madam. My ears warmed. What? It lost. Looking at his face so close to mine, I suddenly lost all anger. I once believed fulfillment meant avenging every wrong, clearing the innocent, saving the city, and keeping him alive. Later, I learned that fulfillment could also consist of small things: a warm lamp, a parcel of plum blossom pastries, an account book hidden beneath a pillow, and a Xiao Yanzhou who competed with ledgers for my attention. Resting in his arms, I laughed softly. Childish, he held me without shame. Only with my wife. Outside the courtyard, Ali was scolding Zhou Heng for buying the wrong pastries again. The old madam laughed beneath the corridor. Wind moved through the parasol trees, and moonlight covered the courtyard. I remembered the night the city fell in my previous life. The capital filled with flames and arrows falling like rain. I had believed then that peace would never exist again. Now I sat in safety, loved, cherished, and even the subject of his childish competition. I wrapped my arms lightly around Xiao Yanzhou's waist. Are we still going through the accounts tomorrow? He was silent for a moment, and I looked up at him in surprise. Yes, he said quietly, but I will go through them with you. I smiled. Can you understand them? His expression did not change. No. Then why come along? He lowered his head and kissed my forehead. To keep my wife company, he said. My heart softened completely. The military grain ledger was very thick. It could wait until tomorrow. As for tonight, I pushed the poor book farther away. He had already won. After giving the day to the accounts, it was only fair to let my young general win the evening.